Fam, what's going on? Kyle Henderson, Bama Football on YouTube. I appreciate you guys being here. Thank you so much for joining me on this beautiful Wednesday, May 22nd. I hope that you are off to an amazing start, and I hope that you are having a fantastic week. Thanks for joining me right here on Bama Football on YouTube. Let me know where you're watching from inside the comment box. 5 Adam, what's going on? I appreciate you being here early. Got a good show lined up for you on my segment, which will be Jimmy Baker's like, 9 a.m. Now, you know I'm coming with it. The 9 a.m. spot will be Ty and Merrill. Today you got me at 8 a.m. Yesterday I came on at 7:30. I'm an early riser. The show might just keep getting earlier and earlier and earlier. You know I work out super early. So who knows? Maybe I take you guys out to a workout. I don't know. But I like to get the day started off right. So the earlier the better for me. And now that the kids are home from school, you know, they have 2 more days. So these are like these last couple of days. I might even go earlier. Okay. So I don't know. Just be sure to be notified so you can jump on. You know, I would never ask like Ty or Merrill to come on that early. I don't know how early those guys get up. And so, you know, this is it's kind of like we're navigating through summer the best that we can. And honestly, yeah, and Jeff, you had graduation last night. I had graduation yesterday with my daughter Lacey, who graduated from 5th grade. So let everybody get checked inside the comment box. Yeah, no, I did set the show for 9 a.m., but I just like to jump on early and warm up the show for the guys at 9 a.m. So it's all good, man. I appreciate you guys being here. Thank you so much for joining me right here on Bama Football on YouTube. There was a little bit of news yesterday that kind of surfaced, so I want to talk about that. Most notably, probably about Khalil Jacobs, which was news, brought to you in part by the great Andrew Bone of Bama Online. Does a really great job. He's always done a really great job, and I love Bone and miss working with him, to be honest, because true pro and someone who certainly a lot of people respect. He's worked for that. And, I'm glad to see On3 him doing so well. I'm also glad for Sam Spiegelman, who got hired by Rivals. So I'm friends with all those guys. I've worked with a bunch of those, different people from, the past. And to see them continuing to grow within their career, really happy about it. I saw that Mike Singer just signed again with On3. He's with the Notre Dame site. He was with Rivals as well. So it's all good. I love it. Again, I'm independent. I make my money specifically from YouTube. So I need you guys to subscribe, to super chat, to become fan funders. The best that you guys can do, but a simple thumbs up goes a long way. So thank you very much for being here right here on Bama Football on YouTube. I appreciate you guys being in the building this morning for my segment here on Wednesday, May 22nd. It's crazy to think that we're already in May, right? And almost past May. Right? I mean, my goodness, we're almost in June. All right. So Khalil Jacobs, let's talk about it. And I think when you look to, a prospect like Khalil Jacobs, let me bring up his name on the bottom of the screen. I feel that, it was an interesting, it was interesting to follow on Khalil Jacobs. And yesterday, as I mentioned, Andrew Bone, Bama Online, said that Alabama will move on from Khalil Jacobs at the end of the day. Maybe it wasn't the best fit for Alabama. I don't know. You can go read on their website kind of the detail that they have. This is interesting because I figured that a really good landing spot for Khalil Jacobs would have been the Alabama Crimson Tide, being that, Kane Womack is here. And I felt that he would have fit in not only as I don't think he would have been a starter, but I think as a quality reserve. And I figured they could have, hooked him up with some sort of NIL money. I don't know if it came down to that or if it just wasn't a good fit overall. I do not believe that if you're not a Power 5 player that you can't play in the Power 5. So I feel that he could have came over here and played as a reserve. And who knows, you're only one play away. So I don't necessarily think that just because he's from South Alabama, he wasn't good enough to play here. It might not have just worked out. So you kind of move forward. And I think Alabama, who they brought in from the transfer portal, was just fine. So I'm kind of glad that that's over because I was watching it. It was kind of like up and down. And he did take his visit this past weekend. So he was in Tuscaloosa. I don't know where he ends up. I haven't even looked where he's projected to go see. Oh, God. I was like, what is bothering me is my shades. All right, got the shades on. All right. These are my Ray-Bans that I have. Right? You see? And I'm surprised because I used to have sunglasses, and I'm so proud of myself because I've had these sunglasses for about a year, and it was getting to the point where I could not keep track of my sunglasses. I was like so irresponsible with them. So truth be told, I was buying my sunglasses on Amazon, and they were only $10 sunglasses at that point in time. And I had them coming like every month. I was losing my sunglasses that often. I don't know, Willow, if it was a grade issue. I don't, there's always ways that they can figure out how to get you here if they really want you here. So I don't know, but I think that Khalil Jacobs going forward will be a fine linebacker, and I don't know where he ends up. I haven't checked any like RPMs or predictions or where he's going to go, and that's kind of that. So we move on from that, and that's how it goes in the transfer portal world. But Alabama, as you know, clearly. Has done a really fine job in the transfer portal. In fact, wanted to talk about Andy Staples of On3. He released his On3 post-spring portal college football top 25. Okay, so I'll slide down this banner so you guys can check it out a little bit more. See if I can do that. So he has Ohio State, Georgia. 3 is Alabama. 4 is Oregon. 5 is Texas. 6 is Michigan. 7 is Florida State, 8 Notre Dame, Ole Miss 9, 10 Kansas State, Tennessee, Penn State, Miami, Missouri, and it looks like I can barely see on the bottom of that as well. It looks like Utah on the bottom. So I think when you look to this post-spring portal top 25, it's a good place to start out with, kind of going into the month of June, kind of now that the dust has settled within the transfer portal. And I get it. There's going to be some guys who are late additions who might bolster this top 25, or you might have to do a reshuffle at the end of the June. But I feel that I don't necessarily know if I agree with this or not. So I screenshotted it this morning. Andy Staples, he has a morning show as well. There's a lot of morning shows to choose from. Andy Staples does a really good job of On3. I think that was a really good addition of them adding him to their YouTube philosophy and to their show philosophy. Really likable person. People know who he is. So this is his top 25. What's interesting is the fact that like CBS just released their own preseason rankings, and this was a couple weeks ago. And they had, and I've read this off a couple times, within the SEC, they had Georgia, Texas, Ole Miss, LSU, Alabama. So they had Alabama there at 5. So Andy Staples is theoretically saying, and not that he's saying that he's going off the CBS rankings, but, look at the amount that Alabama has moved up. I don't know. Did you think this was going to be a top 5 team? I don't know if they're going to be ranked in the top 5 by a bunch of other media members. I'm not even sure that I would rank Alabama within the top 5, to be honest. I really don't. Lions Pride, what's up, man? I see you inside the comment box. Willow, thanks for joining us. Jeff, I see you inside the comment box as well. Bama Ball, Crimson Tide, what's going on? I appreciate you being here. Thank you so much for joining me this morning right here on Bama Football on YouTube. At 9 a.m., I have Ty Hayes and Coach Merrill coming from the Merrill Report right here on Bama Football on YouTube. Yeah, I don't know. Let me ask you. Okay, look, take your crimson glasses off. Okay, put them to the side. Would you rank Alabama right now within the top 5 of college football? Type yes if you would. Type N for no if you wouldn't have them in your top 5. I don't think that I would have them in my top 5 right now. And that's not because, I'm hating on Alabama. I don't think they are a top 5 team right now. I think they will be in time, but I wouldn't have them in top 5. I would probably put the target on a couple other teams' backs. I think I would probably go Georgia, number 1. I would probably go, would I go Ohio State, number 2? I don't know. I might go Texas, number 2. And then I might go Ohio State. Then I might go Oregon. And then, I don't know. I might even put Ole Miss, right? Kyle, you're crazy for that take. Bentley boy, SBJ. What's up, man? I see you inside the comment box. No, Bentley boy, just hear me out. Because I feel that, right, and maybe they could be 5, right? But where would you put Alabama? Jeff is saying 7 or 10, right? I don't think that Florida State or Notre Dame or Michigan, whatever it is, they would be like 5 or 6, right? Patrick Sims, let's see what he says. Patrick Sims says, glasses off, top 3 roster with some of the best coaches in the game. Yes, it's a top 5 team. Okay, top 5 team. Patrick's saying it's top 5 team. Kendrick Insane is saying 6 or 7. Bentley Boy is saying, Kyle, you crazy for that take. Bentley, post your top 5. I want to see it. Maybe I am wrong on that. And now that I kind of look at it, I might put them 5 or 6, but I don't think they're like a sure shot top 5 team. Lion Pride doesn't care. He's like, as long as they're in the top 12 making that playoff. So this is so the teams that are way too high, I would say Kansas State and Notre Dame. Cade is saying top 5 talent, top 5 coach. Why not? That's true. And think about this too. I mean, we say this all the time. Is that Kalen DeBoer is undefeated against Dan Lanning and against Steve Sarkisian, right? Maybe that had something to do with Andy Staples' rankings right here, right? Byron, I appreciate you, man. Willow is saying, and look, if you disagree with me or what, like, it's all good. Like, I won't get upset. I just want to hear like your point in terms of like where you think the ranking should be. At this point, it's May 22nd. You know, I mean, there's going to still be some transfers added. All right. Cooper is saying Ohio State, Bama, Georgia, Texas, and Oregon. All right, Oregon above Texas. Okay. And Jimmy Baker coming in hot says hot take on 3 sucks. No, man. Look, whether or not you like the hosts of On 3, one thing that they have done outside of 24/7, they revolve around pay, right? And they also have like some good other additional pieces, but On 3 has done a really good job to build up like their YouTube channel as quickly as they have, right? JD has done a really good job. They brought in some other components. So Kendrick is saying number 1 Georgia, number 2 Ohio State, number 3 Texas, Oregon. I like this. See, I like this right here. Lions Pride, I appreciate you, man. Saying best content on the tube. Roll Tide, I appreciate it. Kendrick, look, I like this. Georgia, Ohio State, Texas, Oregon, Ole Miss. This is the one. I think I'm signing off on this. I might swap 2 and 3, but this is something that I'm on board with. Bama, Ball, Crimson Tide is saying Georgia, Texas. See, okay, all right, looks good. And then who else we got in here? Cade, what's up, man? Texas and Georgia probably deserving being above Bama. Ohio State with Will Howard is a question mark. Okay, and good thing they don't have Bill O'Brien as their OC, right? Jeff is saying Ole Miss is going to surprise people this year. I see they were good last year, and I think they're going to be better this year. And a big reason for that is the player that we don't talk about for Ole Miss is Jackson Dart is returning. And that guy was a wizard under Lane Kiffin's system. He really was. It was a problem. It was running all over the place. And you know who was chasing him down was Tim Keenan. Big old Tim Keenan was chasing him down. Man, but Jackson Dart's a problem. Man, Kevin, what's up, man? Kevin is saying Ohio State, Georgia, Bama, Texas, Oregon. That's probably going to be within everybody's top 5. So I think the majority of people are going to shuffle around this top 5. I think the Ole Miss is too far down on Andy's list. I think that Kansas State's too high. Notre Dame, too high. Florida State, I guess, Florida State can be there again. Mike Norvell does such a great job with them. I don't really their schedule will make it seem that they're better than they are. The gauntlet of the SEC and even the Big Ten is going to be really difficult. Okay. So that's Staples top 25. Okay, let's move on. Let's see what else I have on here. There was a couple things. Okay. So yesterday there was a Yay Alabama event, and good buddy Nick Kelly, who was on the show last week, he was at the event, and Kalen DeBoer was asked about bringing Kadyn Proctor back. As you know, Kadyn Proctor went to Iowa for, a couple months. He's back in Tuscaloosa. This is the first time that I think Coach Kalen DeBoer has spoken about Kadyn Proctor. So here's that clip. And credit Nick Kelly. He has some other videos. I'm sure you guys saw him, but please follow him. Tuscaloosa News does a really great job. Here's the soundbite of Coach Kalen DeBoar speaking about Kadyn Proctor.
Some areas both in talent, we need some numbers for some depth as well. And that competition is only going to make us better. And so I feel like there were some areas that we knew we needed to address, and I feel like we did a pretty good job of those.
The guy like Kadyn, obviously he was your program. How big is it to be in the back and position of the Eagles?
Yeah, there's no question. He's a guy that was going to play a significant role in the program, and to lose him and now get him back, that's a big deal for us. And I think he's just done a great job of meshing back with his friends, but most importantly his teammates. And I'm excited to get him back into our workouts here this summer.
All right, and the next thing we'll talk about clearly is this clip of Ty Simpson that everybody's talking about. But let's pause right here on Kadyn Proctor. And I've asked you this before, okay, and I'm going to ask you this again. In terms of the overall impact, on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being the highest, how big of an impact is Kadyn Proctor coming back to Alabama 1 to 10? I think you guys will probably say above 10. And look, there was a lot of people, myself included, that were critical of Kadyn Proctor, and we have a right to be critical of these players, right? I mean, we don't have to just, sunshine pump all the time. There was times where he underperformed. There were times where he was beat off the line. There was times that he went against people that were better than him. But when he was gone and we started to look to Alabama's offensive line, sure, there's guys that are coming back that would be capable to be to stand up and replace him, I guess. Jimmy, I got you, man. I'll check the email. But Alabama's a better team with him. So it's kind of like everyone swallow their pride, like Coach Kalen DeBoer, come back, win over your teammates. Grass isn't greener. I'm ready to get back to work and focus in with Coach Kapilovic, and you come back and you have an NFL player, probably a top 10 future NFL draft pick coming back to your team. I think it's monumental. I've said this, Graham Nicholson and Kadyn Proctor are the two biggest transfer portal additions in college football. Seriously, who are other transfers to other programs? Let me ask you this. In the landscape of college football, who are the bigger transfer portal additions? Is there a duo that is bigger than Kadyn Proctor, your starting left tackle, and Graham Nicholson, the returning Lou Groza Award winner? Do you get what I'm saying? And kind of looking back on Andy Staples' top 25, that maybe has an impact with how he was able to do. Throw on Keon Sabb, right? And I know Damani Jackson is not a spring transfer, but having him come in is huge as well. Jimmy Lee Baker is saying nowhere close. Max, what's up, man? I appreciate you being here. When you consider Proctor as a better left tackle than anyone else in the roster, 10 is the only answer. 100%. All right, now this is a take I completely agree with. Right, Bentley? Dude, that Bentley that's money. I was looking, that reminds me, like, speaking of vehicles, one of my friends is in Phoenix, and I know that there's like self-driving cars, but I guess in Phoenix this is a normal thing where there's these Jaguars that are driving around everybody, right? Like self-driving cars in Phoenix. Has anyone inside the chat been in a car that has driven itself? Patrick Sims is saying Ohio State robbing Kalen from us. Yeah, there you go. Caleb was okay. And who else would be another transfer that Ohio State added? Because that's a really good point. Caleb Downs leaving to Ohio State, that was impactful. He's an NFL player. There's people that said that he could be a top 10 player in the NFL draft this past draft. We all know what Caleb Downs brought to the table, 100%. And Willow's right. I think when you look to the portal, like collectively, I think Ohio State and Ole Miss, they did an amazing job. An amazing job. Ole Miss, I mean, I think they're still starting people, adding people. Bama is saying, I'm starting my own YouTube channel with the same content you do right now, starting small and working way big. Good luck to you, bro. Yep, just stay relentless, man. Just let your personality shine. Good luck to you, Bama. Bama Ball, Crimson Tide. There's a bunch of Alabama YouTube channels, a bunch. I mean, it's amazing to see kind of over the last 5 years, how many more Alabama football channels there are. I mean, I think you probably have, one that starts every month, I get it. It's exciting to be a YouTube content creator. And if you can do it, to get by, for sure, 100%. Okay. Let's see. We move on to this clip right here. All right, I'm gonna let it play. This is Ty Simpson, courtesy. This is the QB Country. Okay, Ty Simpson doing work. I mean, look, the video you are about, viewer discretion. The video you are about to see contains a graphic of a quarterback that is elite. Contains video of a quarterback that is not slated to start at Alabama. A quarterback that is damn good. Okay. Who has the biggest YouTube channel for a single school? Colorado, I'm sure. No, it is Bama Football on YouTube. You're here. Yeah. Out of all the YouTube channels that focuses on one school, I think we're the biggest. So, and I started from the ground up, so it's kind of been like, a work in progress. Corey, what's up, man? We're about to talk about Ty Simpson. Okay, viewer discretion advised. Here's that clip of Ty Simpson. All right, so I'll kind of run it back one time. And when you look to Ty Simpson and what he brings in terms of his overall athleticism, this guy has it, okay? And I know every time we talk about the quarterback here, it's a hot topic because you have not one, two, you have three damn good quarterbacks here. And Austin Mack will grow into a quarterback. And I don't know if Austin Mack could pass Dylan Lonergan this spring. I'm not sure. But Ty Simpson is an elite quarterback. Okay? He could start probably anywhere else in the country. Credit to him for not being a spoiled, entitled brat to chase NIL money to leave Alabama. It takes one season. We understand that Jalen Milroe is the guy right now at Alabama. Okay. Does that mean that there's not a quarterback competition? There's always a quarterback competition. There's competition at every single position, every single day. Okay. 5 Adam, what's up, man? I see you inside the comment box. Okay. There's competition at every position. Jam Miller is battling right now with Justice Haynes. The wide receivers, Jeremy Bernard is battling with Kendrick Law. Okay. I promise you, if you have played competitive sports, you are always competing with somebody else on your team. Whether you want to say it or not, you are competing. Ty, I promise you, look, I don't have the facts on this. I don't seen the text messages, but I can only imagine the calls that his father got and that Ty got himself to leave Alabama in December, in January, when the portal opened. I promise you. Okay. Ty Simpson staying says a lot about his character, says a lot about his ability to be coachable. And we always go back to the fact that it just takes one season for a quarterback to really go off, to command the team, and to land up as a top 15 pick in the NFL draft, maybe higher. Ty has what a lot of NFL programs want, and that is an athletic quarterback that has a cannon, that can move around, that understands the schematics, is smart. I mean, Ty has it all. Okay, you have two quarterbacks right now at Alabama that are elite. Okay, I know there's a group out there that doesn't feel that Jalen Milroe is capable of having this team win a championship. I disagree. Jalen Milroe has everything that you want. If Jalen Milroe was to leave Alabama, there would be people that were like, okay, we still have Ty, but you understand the gravity of a player like Jalen Milroe and the impact. He will be the number one player that everybody plays with on this video game that's coming out on July 16th. Okay, there's no more exciting player than football than maybe Travis Hunter. You have Jalen Milroe and Travis Hunter. That's it. Ty Simpson's a baller. Okay, and you are set at quarterback for the next couple of seasons for sure. It's a really good problem to have. Glenn, what's up, man? I see you inside the comment box. Thank you so much. And I understand when I think about Ty Simpson, I said this yesterday on my show, I think about 4 different times that I've seen him. Okay. The 2 games in the spring, right? 2 springs ago, this last spring football game, and the different elements that he showcased about his overall playing ability. And I think about the game against Kentucky, and I think about the game against South Florida. Okay, South Florida came in, sloppiest game I've ever seen from Alabama football since I've covered the team in 8 seasons, and he was able to gut out that victory. It was sloppy, it was wet, the team wasn't playing well, the team was divided, the fans were divided at that time. He didn't care about any of that outside noise. He did what he had to do, and that was win a football game against South Florida in Tampa. He's been low-key. He hasn't ran to the media and complained. He hasn't griped during any of this process. Credit to him. There's been another player that didn't do that as well. He was a man of character, a man who was stoic, and that is Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts, when he lost his position to Tua Tagovailoa, never griped, never complained. He was a teammate, and that is rare. And that's why I'm so proud of Ty Simpson as a man, because he was able to basically just continue to work on his craft and block out the outside noise. Ty, you're supposed to be the starter. Ty, you're better than Jalen Miro. Should be Ty starting. He's not listening to any of that. He's working. He's working on his craft. Love that. And I love Jalen Hurts, and I love how he handled that entire process, right? Exactly, Southern Red. What's up? Good morning to you. I appreciate you. Ty's maturity. He is a man. He understands. He has good coaching. He has good parenting. He understands the long-term process. And I think sometimes when we get short-sighted and we think about the short-term value of small NIL, then, that kind of takes us off our trajectory of a long-term play, which is a big-time NFL contract. So, yeah, one of the best, stories that I saw was the way that Jalen Hurts handled himself through adversity. And I think sometimes when we look at ourselves through adversity, it's easy to throw in the towel. It's easy to be a sad clown. It's easy to play the poor me's, right? This guy's better than me. This guy's this. No, you're not entitled to automatically be the starter. You're not entitled to continue to be the guy if you're not performing at the highest level on the field, or if somebody's better than you. That's not how the world works. So the people that have earned their spots based off their own merit, credit to them. Ty Simpson will get his opportunity. Ty Simpson has a high ceiling. This guy is very, very talented. Whenever he is called on for Alabama, he will rise to the occasion, and you will be completely satisfied with him at quarterback. So love the clip of Ty Simpson. Have a lot of respect for the guy. I personally think he throws a fantastic football. I love his athleticism, and that's that on Ty Simpson. Nate Oates was talking during a Yay Alabama tour. This is video courtesy of Johnny Cogden. ABC 3330 does a really great job. There's so many people who do such a great job covering the Alabama Crimson Tide, whether football, basketball. Johnny has some great stuff on his Twitter account as well. He was talking about Mark Sears, and I think when we look to this basketball team, we all understand that if Mark Sears comes back, that this is the team that, should be a preseason number one. Give them some rat poison. It's time. There's no surprise that Alabama basketball is going to be good. They're going to be elite. This roster that Nate Oates has already assembled, whether Mark Sears comes back or not, my prediction is that he comes back. I don't know. I'm kind of feeling that he comes back. But overall, look at the names that are coming back for the basketball team. And don't tune away if you're like, oh, I'm not interested in basketball. You should be interested in basketball. This basketball team, if you have an Alabama hat, if you have an Alabama jersey, this team, what they've been able to do under Nate Oates in this short amount of time is really magnificent. Mark Sears comes back. Mark Sears, Right Cell, Grant Nelson. You got your big man. It's amazing. Phylon coming back. If Jaren Stevenson comes back, I think he comes back too. You look at the entire roster. You think about the competition at practice. We're talking about practice. Here's what Nate Oates had to say, video courtesy of Johnny Cogden on Twitter.
Yeah, we just kind of met with him, see where he's at. He's got 2 more workouts. He's going to work out for Houston, Milwaukee. We're going to get the feedback. He's going to run right up to the last day because he's got to work out with Milwaukee on the 29th. And, if he doesn't, the feedback's not guaranteed contracts. I think he'd love to come back here and try to win a national championship, but obviously his ultimate goal is to play in the NBA. And if, we told him, if he gets great feedback, that he's going to get a guaranteed contract, we're all happy, and he stays in the draft. He's already graduated college. He achieves his lifelong goal of playing in the NBA. If, we feel like it's more like a two-way, then I think he's going to be back here and try to win a national championship here with him. So,
All right, so that's Nate Oates talking about Mark Sears. Let me ask you, Undefeated, type Y if you feel that Mark Sears will come back for this next season, 2024, 2025. Type Y if you think he's coming back. Type N if you think that he will move on to the NBA. I am going to type Y myself because I feel that he is going to come back. And this team, look, Mark Sears will get his dream to play in the NBA. How could he not? I don't care how tall he is. You see his vertical? The way that he distributes the ball, he has an ability to take over a game. He can be selfless and be the point guard that Alabama needs. I honestly think that he could even play the 2 if you wanted him to. LeBaron Philon, this guy coming in, this guy, he's an elite point guard as well. Look him up. Aiden Holloway, you have as well. Right? So this is my kind of dream. You could have LeBaron Philon at the 1, Mark Sears at the 2, Wright Sell at the 3, Grant Nelson at the 4, and then you have Cliff Amori at the 5. That sounds like an elite team. Stevenson off the bench. Diobate off the bench. Right? Aiden Holloway, get him in the mix. I mean, you see what I'm saying? I just created 8 guys. I mean, Alabama's roster on the bench, they're going to be so deep for this up-tempo style that Nate Oates runs. Man, he did get paid. Nate Oates did get paid. He has that huge buyout. He loves being in Tuscaloosa. It's really been amazing to see what he has added to Tuscaloosa on the basketball front. Just an elite individual, an elite coach. And I kind of understood from the jump when he first came in, he meant business, right? And he has that blue-collar work ethic, and I get it. He's a multi-millionaire now, but he still seems pretty humble to me, right? Is that my audio? Or so if I'm playing through the audio, like when you play the sound bites, it's because it's not like a pool feed. I'm just like screen recording off of Twitter, so that's probably why it sounds weird. Usually if I'm at an event, then I make sure that the audio is all patched up, but I'll re-listen to the audio on the back end, see what it sounds like.
I think he's going to be back here and try to win a national championship here with him. So.
Another tweet screen from Nick Kelly at Tuscaloosa News. Kyle, what's up, man? I appreciate you. 5 Adam is saying, Nate Oates reminds me of Coach K even better. You know, I think when you look to Nate Oates, I think he has a lot of different elements from coaches of the past. And I think he's added that to his repertoire as he continues. I don't even think he's 50 years old, right? What is he, like 44 or something like that? 45? So he's added a lot of Saban. He's probably added a lot of Coach K. He's added, he's a compilation of all these great coaches. And it's amazing to think that 10 years ago, he was coaching high school basketball. But his overall philosophy, and I think he's been able to mold with the times. I think that's what Coach Saban was able to do late in his career, is be able to transform to kind of an offensive style of football, even though it must have been very challenging for him because he's a defensive-minded coach. And we talked about this before as well, is that a sign of a great coach is when you can't get Nate Oates, but you start pulling away his assistants. He lost some really good assistants, right? Guys that are now head coaches themselves, and he still performed at the highest level that Alabama's ever been to. They're a Final Four team, right? Ken O, if he gets guaranteed money, he's gone. Otherwise, he can come back and on guaranteed NIL deal. And I think, with Mark Sears, man, I think the NIL money will be there. Jarvis, what's up, man? Been a minute. Did you see the Damani Jackson interview on the Circle podcast? Pretty good. No, I will check it out. I mean, Damani is a welcome addition. I mean, Jarvis, early in the show, I don't know if you caught this, but we were talking about the biggest transfers to Alabama, and clearly it was Kadyn Proctor and Graham Nicholson. But I think outside of the spring transfer portal, the biggest addition that Alabama got was Damani Jackson. Damani Jackson coming to Alabama within their secondary in the corner position, specifically what they needed. He's the guy that can certainly do that. So, I appreciate you being here. Byron is saying Kentucky got slapped in the face, and I love it. Look, the coaching changes are always going to impact programs, right? You have Calipari, who couldn't get the job done at Kentucky, and it was interesting. Like when he left, you saw, I think Kentucky's kind of swimming, and your brand can take you so far, but they lost out on some prospects. Some players hit the transfer portal. So it's going to be an ultra challenge for them to continue, in my opinion, to continue to perform at the levels that they have been performing at, which would probably be underwhelming in the eyes of Kentucky basketball. But I guess that's another topic and another subject altogether. But I kind of feel like the days of Kentucky basketball might be on the decline. And who would have thought that Alabama would be in a better position basketball-wise, especially in the preseason, than Kentucky? If you followed the SEC for years and years and you waited for Alabama basketball to be better than Kentucky, well, this is the time. And you're like probably trying to like wipe your eyes and be like, is this for real? Yeah, this is for real. Alabama basketball is now at a higher level than Kentucky basketball. All right. How long can you maintain that? Well, that's up to Nate Oates. But if you look to the trajectory, which trajectory is higher right now? Alabama basketball or Kentucky basketball? Seriously. It's crazy to think about, right? It would be like one day thinking like Missouri football was better than Alabama football. I don't know if that's the best analogy, but I bet you Kentucky basketball fans probably never thought in their wildest dreams that Alabama would have a better program and a better trajectory than their Kentucky basketball fans. Right? You see what I'm saying? All right. This additional screenshot says, Nate Oates to a couple of reporters on the Tide Tour tonight, we've got a chance to win a national championship with the team we've got coming back. Exactly to my point. Does Kentucky? No. Right? They're in a rebuilding mode. So I think when Nate Oates understands it, and there's no sugarcoating this, they understand that the target is on their back, right? They know that people are going to be aiming for them. That's fine. They have built this team for that. Right? Jarvis is right, man. How the mighty have fallen. Can you, like, Jarvis, you get what I'm saying? You imagine being a Kentucky light in Kentucky basketball. I have never been to Rupp Arena, but I can only imagine the passion, the love that they have for Kentucky basketball. Same thing to Alabama football, right? And to understand right now that Tuscaloosa, Alabama, a football university, is now basketball and football and much better than you on both fronts, man, that's got to be really tough to swallow every single day. And to continue to, and I don't know if they, I mean, did they, and I think you're right, Glenn, they will be back. But do you think that did we ever find out if they made a run at Nate Oates? Like, did we ever find that out? I can't remember. Undefeated. Did Kentucky basketball make a run at Nate Oates? I can't remember. I don't know. All right, we move on. It was more Ty. Let's see. Oh, I saw this. Byron saying yes. Sealed lips on that one, Max Tooney. Okay, Touchdown Alabama. Really good. They have a YouTube channel as well. They have good talent. It's a long-standing brand, right? Touchdown Alabama. Everybody knows that. They tweeted out this photo this morning on their Twitter account of Bryce Young. And they're like, Bryce Young looks to put on some weight. I have never seen Bryce Young look jacked, ever. Like, he's kind of been, he's been thin. It's just not part of his overall physique. So when I saw this photo, I mean, man, Bryce has been putting on some work. He's much bigger. And I cannot wait to see the growth of Bryce. Look, anybody, he does look swole, right? Whoa, I mean, and he's not slow. And with his ninja-esque mentality, how is that going to translate? I think that's going to be great. So, look, anybody who would have went to Carolina would have been in trouble from the quarterback position. And I feel it must have been a year of growth for Bryce and his family to be able to watch him for the Carolina Panthers, okay? Because he literally played with no offensive line. Emmanuel, what's up? There was nobody. He was out there playing with, I don't know, like his offensive line was subpar. If Carolina loads up and they start, developing around Bryce, I still believe that Bryce can be a very productive quarterback in the NFL. For many different reasons. Number one is Bryce has a skill set because, I was going to say you can't get to him, but with the offensive line like that, my goodness. But I mean, he's too smart. He's still a playmaker. And I think you put Bryce at any other, NFL team, he's going to continue to flourish. I like the fact that he's put on weight. He probably had to because their offensive line is still subpar. Kevin chiming in right here. I live in Charlotte and only 3 miles from the Panther Stadium, and the excitement for the new season is palpable. Yeah, I understand it, man. I bet you. Because you have Bryce Young. You understand how good he is. He was the first pick in the NFL draft. The first time ever a player has been drafted from Alabama in the first round. Jarvis says, all Bryce has known is winning football. Exactly. Yep. I don't like that. I'm telling you, that must have been very, very difficult. Jonathan is saying get him players that will work with him and he'll win a Super Bowl. Bryce you know what? Thank you, Undefeated, for supporting Bryce. It's good to see kind of the feedback in here because, man, sometimes and I look at all the characteristics of the quarterbacks that I've covered here at Alabama. They have all been special in their own way. They have all had a high sense of maturity. They have all been intelligent. They have all represented the university extremely well. And look, this is going to say a lot, what I'm about to say. Because the quarterbacks that I've covered are the following quarterbacks, okay? Jalen Hurts, Tua Tagovailoa, Mac Jones, Bryce Young, Jalen Milroe, okay? Out of all those quarterbacks, the one that I think was the best ambassador, and this says a lot, okay? Because those are all outstanding individuals. I think if you had to choose one ambassador for your program, it would be Bryce Young. The guy was exceptional. 4.0 student, very respectful. I mean, the guy was just it, right? Beautiful ball. And I think that, if he would have had some of those rideouts in the past, who knows what he would have done. If his wide receivers would have stayed healthy, who knows what he would have done. But good to see him in the weight room. And Jeffrey Elliott is saying, just hate it for the guy. One of my favorite Bama players ever. They have to improve their O-line and need more playmakers around him 100%. I'm actually really surprised right now. Not that I didn't expect it, but just the kind of the appreciation that you guys have for Bryce. Thank you. Yeah, it's good for him. He comes. I mean, his dad. I mean, man, I just really hope that things really work out for him. Okay, another quarterback to watch. SMU quarterback commit. And again, at 9 a.m. I have Ty Hayes. Video echoes. Is that when I play like the videos? That's probably because I'm on screen as well. You have Keelan Russell, who is a highly coveted 4-star prospect, who is committed to SMU. He will be taking his official visit from May 31st to June 2nd per his X account. He is ranked as the number 1 quarterback in the nation, according to ESPN. So you have the number 1 quarterback coming into town. I have said this before, okay? Go look up this young man's highlight tape. Keelan Russell. And I think it gives you an idea of the type of quarterback that Coach Kalen DeBoer is recruiting for his system. Chris, what's up, man? I see you inside the comment box. Glenn, thanks for being in again. And 5 Adam, I appreciate you being here. Byron is saying best quarterback Bama ever had. And you know what? I mean, that's a hell of a debate because there's been some amazing quarterbacks here. But I'm just saying, I mean, he was the first guy taken in the NFL draft. The way that he handled himself, his overall playing abilities, man, it's kind of amazing how quick his career went. And all of these guys, right, when they get here, how fast it goes. We could do a whole segment on Bryce, man. Just love that dude. All the quarterbacks here. It's been fun to watch these quarterbacks. And Milroe is writing his own story too. So this Keelan Russell, the young man is elite. He's committed to SMU at this point in time, and you all know how recruiting goes. Go up, down, sideways. Players come in, come out. What I like about this particular situation, a couple things. Number one, it gives us an idea of the type of quarterbacks that Kalen DeBoer is recruiting for his organization. And I think he does want an athletic quarterback. I think he doesn't just want this pocket. I think sometimes when we think Coach Kalen DeBoer, we think of like just a pocket style quarterback. That's not necessarily the case. I mean, you saw how fast Michael Penix was. Now, Penix didn't have to run, but I mean, wasn't he like a 4.4 guy, right? Am I wrong? Wasn't he like a 4-4 guy? So you get Keelan Russell on campus. And for the first time this May, this June, everything is set up for Coach Kalen DeBoer. He has been in a whirlwind. He's still doing his tour of Yay, Alabama, right? Around the great state of Alabama, meeting with different people. But now everything is at home for Coach Kalen DeBoer. He's established in his house, in his office. The coaches understand which restaurants to go to. You get my drift, right? Take the recruits out to Chuck's, all that stuff. Take some time to get acclimated to that stuff. I think if you're selling Keelan Russell on coming to Alabama, you point to the continued fact that this brand still establishes itself unlike any other brand in college football. This brand is going to get all the eyeballs on you. And though you are going to have to battle for your spot here because there's going to be other talented quarterbacks pushing you every single day, that Coach Kalen DeBoer can develop you at the highest level if you are patient and you buy into his system. It's going to be more challenging than ever for any coach, not only Coach Kalen DeBoer, to continue to maintain players for an extended amount of time because of the transfer portal, because of tampering, unless there are big rules implemented by NCAA or whoever else. But you get a guy like this in, and I think it is an exceptional foundation piece for recruiting. Look, I thought about this yesterday. Coach Kalen DeBoer has already been recruiting 3 different classes, including the transfer portal. You're like 3 different recruiting classes. Well, 2024, he had to close the door, right, on 2024. He did that with Ryan Williams, slam dunk. 2025, that's where he's at right now, battling in the trenches. We're still waiting on the 5-star. I'm sure it'll come at some point in time. And you have 2026. How's he doing in 2026? That's way out. Well, he just got 2 defensive back commitments this past week. And Mo Lindquist and Colin Hitchler are probably a big reason to do with that. So it's been amazing to see kind of the overall recruiting process. But, man, you're off to a really hot start with 2026. Those 2 defensive backs, and I get it. You're like, and they probably, who knows? One of them will probably decommit and then recommit, all that stuff. They're what? Are those kids 16? I have a 15-year-old, you know? This dude's got a good head on his shoulders, but still, I mean, he's, you know, it's a long way away. My point is, if you zoom out and you look at what Coach Kalen DeBoer has done, it's really, really impressive. So Keelan Russell coming in, really excited about what the coaching staff can showcase in May and in June during their football camps, and of course those cookouts that will take place on the back end of July. Kyle Henderson, Bama Football on YouTube. I appreciate you guys. I'll be here for a few minutes. Does anybody have questions or any hot topics that they want to post inside the comment box that we hit on before Ty and Merrill jump on at 9 a.m.? Yeah, and these were the clips right here that we played of Ty Simpson earlier. If you're just checking in and you didn't see that, because it was really impressive to see Ty Simpson. I'm not surprised to see his footwork and his overall throwing ability. I've always said that I feel that he throws an exceptional ball. And look, you could say this, you can be like, it's against that, but look, do you see that quick twitch movement?
Yeah,
that is something that not a lot of quarterbacks have. And some players just naturally have that. I think Ty naturally is a natural type quarterback that is athletic, but I think you look to the fact that he's the son of a coach. His dad is the head football coach at UT Martin, right? 5 Adam is saying that Alabama will have the best offensive line in the SEC. I think you might be right. Depending on who you have, on that right tackle position, a lot of it is going to be on Wilcom Formby, right? If Wilcom Formby can kind of rise up and be that guy. Glenn is asking who the next commitment's going to be. Who do you guys think that this is good? Who do you think the next commitment will be for Alabama? You think it'll be Dawson Merritt? Man, that would be crazy. If Alabama comes in and wins the Joe Moore Award, like Eric Wolford leaves and then the next guy come in. Dejon Lee, this would break the internet. if Dejoun Lee commits to Bama, first 5-star coming in. Do we have an announcement date for Dejoun Lee? Has he announced? Keelan Russell, the next commit? That would also be gigantic. Offensive, damn. Look, Dejoun Lee out of California. This guy, if you haven't seen his highlight tapes, I'll try to bring up Dejoun Lee real quick, his recruiting profile. Like, out of Mission Viejo, right? You know the ballers that have come out of there. Here, I'll bring this up on the screen. Oh, this guy is like, this would be summer Christmas, okay? If Dejoun Lee, 70. So look, do you see this right? So be careful with these things, okay? So do you see where this says RPM? This could have meant that just one particular or a couple of different people put in predictions for him, right? So if 2 people put predictions on him, it might raise it up to 7. I haven't seen like a Steve Whitfong or somebody with like a Bone put out a prediction on him. But when you're looking at Dejoun Lee, this is your early Christmas wish list, right? 6'4", 185 pounds. He's a 5-star, the number 1 player in California. I'm surprised to see that he's the 30th ranked player in the country. Must be an incredible class of 2025. This guy is outstanding. I love. Did Bone say that Bam is a leader for Dejoun? Yeah. Man, load him up. 6'4" corner. Give me all of that. Let me ask you this before I bring Merrill on. Merrill, you good, man? Give me a thumbs up if you can hear me. Okay. Let me ask you this. Or not. I would imagine that they are dealing with, the speeding incident. I'm sure that's up to Coach Kalen DeBoer. I haven't heard any updates on that. Who's the tallest corner that Alabama's had? Like tall corners, tall, rangy corners. Help me out. Was Kyrie Jackson? He was tall. Trey Amos, what was he, like 6'2"? Kevin Lynch is also saying, according to 24/7 Sports, Alabama is the leader. I don't know. Trayvon Diggs. What was Trayvon Diggs, like 6'2"? You get a 6'4" corner in. I like it. Let's bring on Coach Merrill. Patrick Surtain. Oh, man. Patrick Surtain. I love me some Patrick Surtain. We got Ty, too. Ty, what's up, man?
What's going on?
Hey, so Ty, we're talking about Dejoun Lee, okay? Do we have like a start? Like, is there a date for Dejoun Lee to announce? Like, because everyone inside the Undefeated was talking about, they feel that he could be the next guy to commit. I haven't seen like a commitment date on Dejoun Lee. Do we have that?
Yeah, I think he's going to take all of his visits before. Let me go back in my notes. I actually have.
It's Washington, USC, right?
So it goes Washington, May 31st, Georgia, June 7th, Texas, June 12th, Texas A&M, June 14th, Bama, June 21st. Interesting to note, though, 2 or 3 days after he released his visit schedule, he released his top 4, including Washington, Georgia, Texas A&M, Alabama. So I don't know if that Texas visit is going to happen. But I listen, I said in my video, and I'm going to say it here, this is a Bama-Georgia battle, right? Like, coming from Mission Viejo, Georgia now has Dante Williams, who is the cornerback coach at USC. And though I'm hard on USC's defense, I don't know that I can in good conscience blame Williams. That speed defense has proved to be problematic at multiple different stops, but he's got the relationship with the Zabian Brown. He's got the relationship with the Damani Jackson, and Alabama's after several other California prospects. So I don't know if he'll be the next. Dawson Merritt is an interesting one because isn't his date like July 3rd? Something around that.
Yeah, I just, this Dejoun Lee prospect, I watched his highlight tape, and I appreciate the heads up on the visits. Good stuff, Ty. You get a rangy corner, and I was asking the Undefeated inside the comment box, who was like the tallest corner that you remember? I like the long, rangy corners because it gives you some flexibility. Merrill, from a coaching's perspective, you like the secondary, you talk secondary, you played secondary. Why is it important to have these long, rangy type corners, because I think in today's world of college football, you want mismatches if you're an offensive coach. So I'm looking at bigger wide receivers like a Caleb Odom, because usually corners are like 6'1", like 6'2" is like a big corner, but you get someone rangy like 6'4", that bolsters your defense.
100%. I mean, you look over the years, and what's up, everyone in the chat and undefeated, but you look over the years, just going way, way back, right? Like when I'm in middle school, elementary, coming up through high school, I think when we all are, right? Ty's the young buck up here. So when it comes down to it, though, is you watch the corner progression of the type of athlete they were looking at corner. The Seahawks, Pete Carroll was really big on this. Pete, I mean, he's a defensive backs coach too. He's a lot like Saban in that sense. But he loved doing this kind of cover style with his cornerbacks where they were able to match up one-on-one. And if that ball is put up and deep, I mean, these guys could get up and get it. I mean, you look at Richard Sherman. At one point, they had another cornerback, and I'm blanking on his name right now, but he's like 6'5". He's huge, and that's when they had that Legion of Boom over for the Seattle Seahawks. So I think the advantage aspect of it is, yes, you get to cover. I think when you think of length, you also think of stride. These guys can cover a lot of ground. I mean, look at Zay Mincy. Zay Mincy is a great example of this, because Zay Mincy is very big. I'm going to be honest with you guys. Like, I look at him and something in my mind keeps wanting to go through this mindset of saying, oh, is he going to be a safety? Is he going to be a safety? But in the end of the day, I mean, you're right, Jarvis. Like, size on the edge, it matters. It's a big deal. And what we're asking our corners to do now, and coming downhill, especially maybe in this defense, what we're seeing, right, is what we're asking them to do is come down, get off that block, and match up, whether it's someone pulling, and force that run back inside into the lane. I also think, just from a standpoint where I get back to this is that size, you don't necessarily get caught up in that jam, right? Like, I'm going to be honest. There's a story going back to running 7-on-7s at University of Washington. We ran 7-on-7s against the Seahawks in the summer. I played a strong safety in that defense. I came down over Jeremy, gosh, dang it, the tight end from Seattle Seahawks at the time that went to Super Bowl with Matt Hasselback and Sean Alexander. He got in a lot of trouble, that tight end. He also went to went to Washington at one point. Gosh, I cannot remember. His wife's a soccer player, Hope Solo, or was. I don't know if they're still married. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah. No,
Jeremy freaking A. I cannot.
Ask the undefeated. They'll know. Hope Solo, man. She was intense. She got into some
got
problems.
A mean right hook.
Right? Hope Solo, yeah. I'm surprised we haven't seen her like on some celebrity like boxing type things. I mean,
I'm surprised she's not in the UFC.
She was a goalie, right? Wasn't she a goalie? She was a goalie. Yeah.
She was part-time.
Awesome, dude. Yeah, part-time. Yeah, okay. I see time. Yeah, that's a good one. But yeah, so I remember coming downhill and like matching up on him one-on-one. He trips up, right? And this dude was huge, like 6'7". He was gigantic. And the name's going to pop up at some point. I'll remember it.
Doesn't it start with a C?
Freaking A. You guys are driving me. Now I got to look it up.
I'll look it up. You go.
Yeah, keep going. But so you think about that, and I'm just give you guys like a perspective, because you can't see this on film. But like, I'm 6'3", at that point in time, 220. For a safety, that's actually pretty big.
Yeah.
In that time frame, right? That's like, Sean Taylor. He was 6'3", 230. Okay. Jeremy Stevens, thank you. Gosh, dang it, dude! I can't believe I forgot that, man. Jeremy Stevens. So we would run 7-on-7s with these dudes, man. And it was impressive. It was fun to get out there. But you think about the size of some of these tight ends and some of the I guess the route running and the route trees now. And this is where you get advantage, right? Is if you do have a big corner, it's a lot like basketball and getting a rebound, or just honestly playing really good defense and being able to use your body, right? And I think there's that advantage. And then again, overall, you know what, man? It's funny, dude. I got this box. It's like those. It's not a box. It's a giant crate. Okay, of just highlight stuff, of letters, of offers, of everything. Honestly, I thought about putting it in a collage and making it my background for this, because my background
that'd be
is
awesome.
garbage.
Just make your background a rotating video of your highlight tape.
Oh, dude.
It's
actually
the
not
biggest
bad.
Booms. Yeah.
I'd like to know what I'd be ranked now.
No, I know. Have you seen my highlight tape, Meryl?
Yeah, yours is impressive, Kyle.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be straight, dude.
Yeah. See, the thing is just, I mean, because I had good speed, it just wasn't like Florida speed. It wasn't like Southeast Texas speed, or like Dallas Metro type speeds. But I mean, have you seen what these? I gotta go here in a second. But have you seen what these guys are running in like the 4x1s out there,
dude,
in high school?
Texas.
In Texas, what?
Astacita and Duncanville.
Yes. What would they
sub 40? They were at like 39, 118.
They would have won the Big Ten, right?
I'm telling y'all, and I know people say, "Oh, it's just because Texas track is different." Absolutely. There was a few years ago, Kyle, Kadyn Durham, who's now going to be LSU's running back.
Yeah,
at least vying for playing time. Very talented. Really excited to see him in the SEC.
Yeah.
But there was a point where I remember his junior or sophomore year, he was qualifying for state. And at Duncanville, if you ran over a 10.45 during that regional, you weren't qualified. Like, it was ridiculous.
Oh, man, it's so wild. Man. I will say this, though. I played against some guys. One of the dudes qualified for the Olympics in the 100. Okay. So I played against guys in Washington. You guys are like, what? What the hell? Right? Like having a guy up there who's that fast.
No, they got some track up there.
No, I mean, kind of. I mean, there's some athletes, right? Like, it's hidden a little gem at times. I played against a couple of dudes who are big time track guys. It's interesting to see and watch how they can try and translate that to the field, because it's very hard to do. For some reason, there's this mental blockage that goes on as soon as they throw pads on, right? And just I don't know what it is, but it's like some guys, don't get me wrong, they translate that very well. But it's funny when you hear guys talk about a comparison to 100 and a 40, because it's just past the 40 where you start to get full acceleration. So if you can accelerate, the quicker you can accelerate and maintain, right? That's how you get these killer 100 times. And a 40, it's all about that start. That's why they practice the start as much as possible, right? Like if you watch guys in their start, it's funny. I was just watching these at the NFL Combine. It's so powerful and it's so big. You see, like, those steps are huge, man. They're just trying to gain ground, and then at that last point, they want to hit this like max acceleration, right? And so it's interesting, man, when you watch it, because the track times are so fascinating. And then you're like, okay, which guys translate that to the football field?
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? So
hey, you guys do your thing, man. You guys have a good segment. I'm out, and stay tuned for more. As news happens, we got you covered right here on Bama Football on YouTube. Ty Hayes from Around the Table Sports, Coach Merrill. We appreciate you guys more than you know. Do your thing, fellas, and I'll catch up with you soon.
Appreciate it, Kyle.
Woo.
Man, how you doing today?
I'm good, man. How are you doing, Ty?
Can't complain. Yeah. Had some breakfast. Was sitting outside before it gets stupid hot. Enjoying
how
a
hot's it supposed
padron.
to be today, dude?
I don't know. Yesterday it was like 95 and humid, and it's just like it's Texas. It's about to get real hot, real unpleasant. And so I'm just trying to enjoy the mornings before it happens. Now, we've got some interesting comments. Shout out to everybody in the Undefeated. I did want to get your take on this right here, right? Because we're in that time of the year, ladies and gentlemen, where it's tough to talk about just Alabama every day. But luckily, we do have some recruiting stuff to talk about. We have some stuff in the transfer portal to talk about. And we are talking about what Alabama lost relative to what they gained. Today, we are hitting the defensive back room. And if time allows, I think it'd be fun to look at the SEC as a whole, look at some of the over-unders, and give kind of an analysis of where we think a lot of this will end out. But let's start on the recruiting front, right? Y'all were talking to John Lee. Yeah. I truly, truly do believe that this is a Bama-Georgia race. Okay. And where it will end up, I don't know. He's got the relationship with the Georgia DB coach, right?
Yeah.
That's a pre-existing relationship.
Mhm.
Dante Williams, coming from the California area, has been recruiting him for a while. And ladies and gentlemen, that guy can recruit, right?
Yeah.
Like he got Damani Jackson over Nick Saban out of high school. And I very vividly remember making that video as I was dejected. I was disappointed. I was halfway depressed making that video because I've told this, and guys like Kevin, who I know have been around my channel for forever. Ephraim has been around my channel for forever. I think both of those gentlemen, Jake, were actually in the first 1,000 or
Oh,
so
that's cool.
subscribers. Oh
Yeah,
no,
that's awesome.
they've been rocking with Around the Table Sports since 2021
Seriously.
when I took off. So
Wow.
I know both of these guys will remember this. There were 2 prospects in that recruiting class that I wanted more than anything. Denver Harris, who that's an interesting story, but not because of his talent, right? Like that's just been a bunch of off the field stuff with Denver. A&M was one of those places where that class, they loaded up on all that talent, Jake, and there was zero culture there.
Yes. Yeah.
That probably
100%.
wasn't the best place for Denver, right?
No,
Like
man.
just Bama would have been great for Denver, right? Just the structure of Saban, because, and Jake, you can speak to this, but it's more than just developing football players. That's
Completely.
part of your job.
Yeah.
But Kalen DeBoer, if he was sitting here, he'd tell you, no, my job is to win football games, to develop football players, but to develop young men.
Yes.
And if you can successfully do that, Jake, I would argue there are some coaches out there that pride the development of young men more than they even pride. I mean, I don't know about more, but as much as like if you have a bunch of players go off to become very successful in their lives, whether that's having great families, they're great fathers, they're great leaders, I think there are probably some coaches out there that value that as much, if not more, than saying, oh, well, I have all these draft picks, right? It's all about, what do you think about that?
Yeah, no, I mean that's a very good point. I think in the end of the day, everybody does remember football ends, but at the same time, I also think that like jobs are on the line. There's a lot of pressure nowadays.
Gotta win.
Holy smokes, you gotta win. Like it's almost it's kind of wild, man. Like just today, the pressure. I mean, pressure's always been there, but I don't know what it is now. The pressure to win just seems, if you don't win, and it's funny, Ty, because I made some topic lists too for today, because that was one of my questions, to be honest with you, was like, what happens with KD? Now I don't want to put it in everyone's mind, but we have to ask that question.
No, that's what we're here for.
Yeah, what happens to the fan base, like to the mindset, to the little changes that were made that people maybe don't like. We always hear Adam, I love you, man, but we always hear you in here upset about the music that's played at practice, maybe a more relaxed culture, as some would say, right? I like all these different things. So the pressure's there to win, but at the same time, right, football ends, and you do almost have to say the guy who wants to make you into the best human being you can be, if he's really focused that hard on making you and just developing you as a young man, that is such a valuable thing, I think, especially today, right? Because you have all the pressure of the outside world. I've gotten into this a little bit the other evening with Coach Sean and Coach Jay. We were talking about this a little bit, but the outside world right now, the news is hard to ignore because it's in your face 24/7. It's constantly negative, right? We have created a lot of pressure and really done a crap job of building up the family. We've done a really good job of separating the family. And so then you get these kids in, what we would call, sadly, broken homes, right? And the only thing that they have that keeps structure in their life, because mom's working, dad's working just to afford groceries, just to pay the mortgage, just to do normal things that for example, growing up, it wasn't like luxury, but we could survive on a single income household. That's how it was. I'm the oldest of 4. Okay.
Not now.
Not now. That's unrealistic now unless you're killing it. So you look at all the outside pressures, right? And the outside stress, and these kids are left to their own devices. In turn, what the value comes from is within sports, and I think it's always been there. It's just it's different value at different points in time along history, right? Of the game. There's different values and different benefits to it at different points in time along the timeline of history within within the game and within the history even of America. Okay, when the game gets going, but the value of it is this structure in this place where you have these people in place who are meant to. The whole idea behind it is this organized sport. Obviously, early on, they realized like the financial benefit of it, but also what it did for the people and bringing people together. And then we've seen the amazing skills and mindsets it's been able to develop over the years. So there's so much value in being able to be a coach who can just focus on really making these guys the best they can be as human beings, but also develop them as football players at the same time. You know what I'm saying? Like I think that's huge. It's a good argument to say, like, there are a lot of coaches out there who I would weigh that if you look at KD staff, yeah, they want to win. They're at Bama. That's the standard, right? But at the same time, like I think there's guys who, a good example of a coach who's probably like that, but doesn't have like the best of records is Stephen Wilkes. I'm going to be honest with you. There's a reason why I want to play for Stephen Wilkes. Okay. Stephen Wilkes, for those who don't know who Stephen Wilkes is, he was the defensive coordinator this last season for the 49ers. He was the head coach at Arizona Cardinals, 3 seasons ago now, Ty, where they went like 0-17.
I'm not gonna lie, man. Ever since I started doing college football content, I can count the amount of NFL games I've watched on one hand.
So he was a defensive backs coach with Tyrone Willingham when Tyrone Willingham is at Notre Dame. Okay, and they have that good Notre Dame before they go to University of Washington. All right. And he was the thing about Coach Wilkes, man, is he was very much about developing you. Like he preached this. And he would send these things out. He'd get a hold of me and contact me, call me, check in on me, he came to a lot. I'm going to be honest. I was really impressed. He would show up at a lot of my high school games during the football season. That's a long drive that's like an hour drive from Seattle, hour down, hour back. He would come to my games Friday evenings, watch me play, and I would see him, and he knew it's like he was communicating with me just by little things he would say, little things he would do right with his body language, and I would pay attention, and I would fine tune this or fine tune that or fix that during the game. But on top of that, he had this very unique motivating style. He wasn't a screamer. He wasn't this wild dude, but what he did a really good job of is wanting to make sure that in the meantime, besides like the football aspect, that I was trying to be the best I can be, right, as a human being. And that meant almost more to me in a way, because you could just feel how much he cared about me. And it was a bummer because like after I signed, he got an opportunity of a lifetime, and he goes to coach with Chicago Bears, who goes to the Super Bowl. So, and that's his start of his NFL tenure. So.
Yeah, and my favorite Saban story is the Muhsin Muhammad story.
Okay.
Right? Whenever they were talking about how he should kick a player off the team, and Saban blew up on the media. And he was saying, well, you know what? There was another time in my career when everybody told me I needed to kick a guy off the team, and I didn't listen to him. And what ended up happening? He went on to have a successful NFL career. He's gone on to have a successful career in business. He started naming all of his, not by name, but he started talking about each of his children, being like, this child is doing great at this college. This child is doing great at this college. This child was one of the top students at one of the most prestigious universities in the nation. And Jimmy Lee beat me to it. And he looked at them and he said, so who was right?
Yeah.
That story, there's a lot of reasons why I've said I'm fascinated by Nick Saban. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to come clean. Very few of them have to do with football. Very few of them have to do with the game of football. Now, don't get me wrong. This is what I do for a living. So I certainly have an immense appreciation for Saban, the genius football coach, but I have an even greater appreciation for Saban the mind, Saban the person, because I always thought it was fascinating that everybody thought Saban was some hard, gruff guy. And I'm like, you're not going to hear players talk about their head coaches the way that these guys talk about Saban.
Yeah.
Like, that's the front we get. But behind those closed doors, you have a man that cares as much as anybody possibly could about the kids that were in his locker room.
Agreed, man.
And that, to me, was always, to this day, the most fascinating aspect of Nick Saban. The most fascinating aspect of Nick Saban. It's a reason why I have one book over here. I've got 2 other books in the other little library we have in the house. And I read a lot about Nick Saban. I study Nick Saban a lot because I've often wondered, Jake, what would he have done had he not been a football coach? And I think that there's no shortage to the answers that you could come up with, right? Like, even if you want to say, oh, he would have continued down the path, maybe taking over the family business, the gas station in West Virginia. Maybe. That's fair.
I know he's talked about going into car sales.
Maybe. That's completely fair. But I also think that there are higher callings for people like Nick Saban, and he found his, right? Like, he is a fascinating person. And I love the stories, Lynn, about Nick talking about Miss Terry when he was in high school, wanting to impress her when she was dating the other school's quarterback. And he made it his goal to make sure that she knew, like, I'm going to make sure when we get out on this football field, I make my impact, right? Like, such a fascinating individual, just absolutely fascinating.
And Tom, I'm going to touch on that real quick because this is a real, that's a, man, what heck of a comment, Lynn, because I think people don't realize the impact. I mean, they do to an extent, I think, especially if you're deep into Alabama football, because you got to see a lot of Miss Terry and you hear Nick reference her a lot in different aspects. But I do think that people do not realize from an overall whole world picture of Saban's success, right? A lot of that comes from the support he has at home. Behind every powerful, strong leader, right, there is a strong woman, and a woman who gives exactly the right motivation. There's a gal online, Sadia Khan. Okay, she's a psychologist on relationships, and she talks about how the support of a wife, right, in her role in building up her husband, to being the best he can be, and what it does in different aspects. And there's small little things, and how that impact is in allowing him to feel secure in himself, right? Because today we talk about, like, there's so much negativity towards being a man, like what we would imagine society, well, at one point a man was, and now maybe what society's looking at the way a man is now, right? There seems to be a lot of negativity. What's beautiful is in order to make sure that is, you can be yourself, you can be secure in yourself, you can have the confidence and get after every single day, and you have this amazing backbone who is Miss Terry. And again, Lynn brings up another comment. I see, let's see here, there's another one too. I thought I saw it in there, but there was another one as well. But her, like, impact on the players too, because she has a different impact than Nick does, right? So Nick can go this, like, very direct, hardcore direction, very much of his style of the way he grew up, right? His dad was like, he's strict. He'd get after you, but he knew his dad loved him. So there was a unique way of love there, right? That he talks about was a huge impact in his life. And who else had that impact? And I always bring this up, is Don James.
Yeah.
The famous Washington coach. Okay. Don James was very similar to Nick's dad, right? Why why Nick references those two male figures in his life as these impacts. But there's also a backside of Nick's mom and the love and the caring and how she did a great job with their family that he does talk about. I think Miss Terry emulates that perfectly, and she does a good job of creating that balance with the players, right? In like, how she brings them. It's this home. We love you. We care about you. Where Nick can kind of go this more stern disciplinarian route. He loves them. It's a different style of love. I think that's harder to emulate nowadays, though. Like in this exact time frame. That's why I think Kalen DeBoer style almost fits better now.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? I'm going with that? Yeah.
100%. And listen, there are ebbs and flows to everything in life, right? Like you always have and I come from the law background, so like, well, different. When I think I should be more poignant. I come from the legal background, right? You more specifically come from law, as we generally think about these words, right?
Yeah.
Like, I come from more of like studying constitutional law
and the cop.
And so I always remember like the Supreme Court talking about like just because we've made a ruling in the past doesn't mean that ruling is set in stone, because we have got to operate under a revolving standards of decency within society, and society is always evolving. So too must our understanding of some of our past rulings. Like just because we've ruled about this doesn't mean that's always going to be the case. A great example is privacy. Right. You can go into some fascinating case law about privacy, the way that the court was ruling about it in the 50s, 60s, 70s, as compared to some more recent rulings where there's a much different standard, though the court is always weighing how can we ensure the right to privacy relative to all of these changes in society. And it's absolutely fascinating. And I think that's a great kind of tie to what your point is about Kalen DeBoer. Just because something is different doesn't make it bad or wrong. We must ask ourselves, what are the evolving standards of quote unquote decency? That doesn't mean Saban was wrong. That just means that now we have to look at where we are and figure out what the best way to try and get an analogous result is. And I think you hit the nail on the head, man. I do think that Kalen DeBoer's style, it's in a lot of ways very similar, but a very different way of going about getting to the same result.
Yes. Spot on, Ty. Spot on. And Chris gave you a huge shout out, dude. Ty is very educated, Chris. He is very smart. Oh, man, come on, Ty. Look, Ty, you're also very humble, so he won't give himself the credit for how smart he is. But I mean, like, this is why we have a good back and forth aspect in the end, because I mean, he gets into these really great points and details that I get a piggyback off of and try to hit on some others. So we make a good team.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And Chris, you made me laugh a lot earlier right up here, because I was wondering, he said this. No. Right before he said Miss Terry ruined. And I was like, where are you going with this? And then
come on, Chris, not on this show.
He said, Miss Terry run the show. Sorry, bad texting.
Oh my God.
I was like, where are we going?
Jesus. Whoa. Oh man. Whoa. Whoa.
Matthew, what's up, my man? But to kind of, we kind of got on a little bit of a tangent there, and that's all good. Listen, we're in the off season. And so while this is a football podcast, this is a podcast.
Yeah.
Right. So you're going to get a little bit of everything. That's why we talked about some breakfast yesterday. Someone asked me if I had my McGriddle today. Where was that? Let me scroll back up. It was Rocket.
Oh, okay.
I did not have my McGriddle today. I cooked a sauteed spinach.
Ooh.
Right. I save all of my bacon grease.
Yeah.
And I use it to cook with, just because, like, okay, here's a little, if you're cooking burgers, the best burger I've ever had is a mix of beef and pork.
Okay. Yeah.
Best burger I ever had, because you just get that different fat consistencies in there, and it just cooks really nice.
Yeah.
So like bacon grease, guys, if you can jar it in a mason jar and refrigerate it, it's fantastic to cook with. Plus, you saute some spinach and some bacon grease, it gets this really nice smoky flavor added to it. So sauteed spinach in the omelet with fresh grated cheese, don't buy, if you can help it, right? Don't buy already grated cheese because it has a caking agent in it that doesn't allow it to melt the same way as like a block cheese does. So, grate the cheese, sauteed spinach, grated cheese, and cut up bacon in the omelet. Ooh,
man.
ooh, that's great. That's great. But
Good. You know who said it right though? It's 5 Adam, man. Intermittent fasting. That's what I do. Adam, 5 Adam. I do intermittent fasting. I'm all about that, my dog. It's good stuff.
See, I'm on a seafood diet.
A seafood diet.
Yeah, I see food and I eat it.
I like it. I knew you're going that direction. Yeah,
terrible joke hour with Ty Hayes. I'm here all week,
hilarious.
ladies and gentlemen. I'm here all week, right?
That
was a terrible joke.
I
That was
thought it was
awful. So, let's get back to football because I'm certainly no comedian. We were talking about Dejoun Lee, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he's got the relationship with Dante Williams at Georgia.
Yeah.
That's going to be tough to beat, right? Like, I'm not saying that Bama isn't going to get him, but this is also, listen, I'm not here to give you great news.
Mm-hmm.
I'm here to give you my news, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I'm here to give you my opinion on things. And sometimes you're going to disagree, and that's all well and good. My contention isn't that Bama's not going to win this. I think Bama's in a great position. My contention is right now, if we're looking at the defensive back coaches that have a pre-existing relationship with this guy, Georgia's got it. The guy's been recruiting Dejoun Lee forever.
100, man. I mean, that's a good point. Like, that relationship aspect is huge. I do think though that there's familiarity with the staff, even on the offensive side, but really with Kalen DeBoer.
Yes.
And I think he, in a very way that maybe he doesn't impact necessarily as much in other recruits, he's going to impact on this one because
I think so.
He's going to be an integral part in getting Lee, because there's that his family is familiar with DeBoer from the time they're recruiting him at Washington. It's why Washington was high up on his list originally, right? I will say, like, we do have to be careful of. I think you're spot on, Ty, with Georgia and Bama being those two are your primary schools that he will consider in the end, and especially with that familiarity. But I do think Washington is going to try and sneak in there. I think, Jed Fish over at Washington, I have to give him a lot of props for how much of a desolation of the roster and everything that had happened to what he's already been able to accomplish. So I think Washington's going to try and sneak in there, but I mean, in the end of the day, it's hard to say which school between. I do feel like you're right. It comes down to Bama and Georgia with him. So.
Yeah, and Matthew's right. Courtney Morgan has a lot of history with them. 5 Adams says KD and Morgan have more history. I don't know if I'd say more, because I think that Donta Williams was after this kid, watching him in high school whenever Courtney Morgan was still at Michigan.
Yeah.
So, like, because he was right down the road. You know what I mean? Like, he was always at his games. But that's not to say that KD and Courtney Morgan don't have a great relationship with him. And let's be honest, Courtney Morgan and KD are lauded across the nation for being incredible relationship builders. Jimmy Lee asked if USC was ever in his top 5. I don't believe that last year, 5 Adam says, yeah, but my point is 5 Adam is Dante Williams has been recruiting this kid for a long time.
Yeah.
More than last year.
Yeah.
Right. Dante Williams has been after him for a minute. Right. And so Jimmy Lee saying, was he ever in a top 5? He hadn't released a top 5 at that time, right? Like, he was so early in the process. But listen, I do think Alabama gets this win for Dejoun Lee. It's just going to be a really fun recruiting battle to watch, right? Like, it's going to be fascinating to watch.
It's, you know what, though, I will say this, and I didn't even think about this, and I just want to put this out there. The one part where Dante, Williams, from a coach standpoint, is going to have, it's almost a negative thing, is you get Damani Jackson. And granted, I know it's not, I don't want to put it all on him, right? Because it's very much is scheme based, but it's harder to say it's necessarily scheme based when you're the cornerbacks coach. And was he also like a secondary coordinator? Because it's very much similar to like the passing coordinator on offense. The secondary coaches there. I don't know if he was at SC or not. But if he,
I don't know what his job was there, but like I've always said, and I'm not saying
I know.
Alex Grinch's defense have been terrible.
True fact.
Forever. And I am looking at this. Continue on, Jake, because I'm reading this article that will kind of give me a clarification as to the timeline.
Because if that's the case with like Williams in Damani Jackson, who is also a highly touted top prospect coming out, I mean, number 2 in the nation, I think, behind Travis Hunter, and but I mean the number 1 in California. But then he doesn't have production at USC under this coach, and we sit there and we go, well, wait a minute. Would the same thing happen to Lee? And I think DeJon has to ask himself that question. That's a fair question to ask. Like, wait a second, time out. You know, if I go over to Alabama, and I think this is where it sits in Alabama's favor, is you have Damani Jackson,
I agree completely with
right? Where he's going to say, dude, look, man, like I get it. He's a good coach. He's a good dude. Like I'm sure, you know, Georgia's a unique program. He goes, but if Damani sits there and says, you see, I didn't leave. I didn't try to bounce after Saban left because I really believe in what they're doing here. I believe in this team. And I think you come in and you really get a push within the next year or 2 year even for playing time. He's like, you know, so I think that's where the advantage actually works out for Alabama. And that's why if I were to really break this down, I'd swing with DeJon Lee in Alabama's favor. I think the system works for him. It's not as complex. You get to play earlier. You get to play a little more loose. And yet, especially if you watch Damani this year, if he goes off, right?
Well, I think he will.
I do too. I really do. I think he's going to have a huge year. But Damani goes off. Now, what do all these recruits say that these cornerback recruits, right? I mean, honestly, from a nationwide standpoint, because at that point you can say, okay, wait a minute, like look what they're doing with guys who were not as productive at other schools who are now, like, especially if we have, which I think he will too, Deshaun Brown go off, right? I think you then say from a standpoint of where our question marks are, and I keep bringing this up, is that these recruits will take notice and they'll be like, okay, well, wait a minute, maybe Corey Raymond, maybe his time is a little more up, right? I think Corey Raymond is a phenomenal coach. So
yeah, I mean, well, and this is a great example, right? Like this is why I'm so fascinated. I don't know if you've noticed, but the hydraulics in my chair, this is a very old chair. I've had it since high school. And like periodically I'm just like lowering more and more. And that's why you'll see me like kind of stand up and like, you know, hit this. But here's a great example, right? Corey Raymond was thought of as one of the top defensive back coaches in the nation. He goes to Florida and that defensive backfield is bunk.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's where I don't disagree with you, but I also do question, like, if your defensive coordinator isn't calling plays to put people in a successful situation, how much can a great defensive backs coach even help? And like Adam was saying, you know, he said, one, Adam, what I would say, Damani was hurt at USC, and 2, Jake can speak to this. It's hard to be successful playing defensive back when you're trying to be in phase of coverage, but the whole time in your mind, you're thinking, if this is a run play, they've already gotten through the front 7. I got to turn around and there's the running back streaking towards me. And now I got to go make a play on him.
Wow.
So you never get to just be like, I can do my job. There was no faith of that at USC, where, you know, a defense is successful because all 11 players do their job. The whole time Damani's covering, he's thinking, I know that running back has busted through the front 7. I just know it. He turns around. Yep, there he is. That's rough. Now, because I want to make sure that I'm getting good information to people, and I wanted to make sure, because Jimmy Lee asked, was USC, an article from August 25th, 2023. stated that the recruiting industry thought that Dejoun Lee was on the precipice or could commit to USC. And at the time, the schools really after him were Texas, UCLA, Oregon, and USC, and Oklahoma are among those to extend scholarships. And they thought that USC was in a position to where they might be able to get a commitment soon, right? Like they thought that they might be able to get a commitment from him last season during his early stages of his junior or even sophomore campaign. So that's where I'm saying, like, I think Alabama will be able to win this for the exact reason Jake highlighted, where he was like, hey, now you have Damani Jackson. If Damani Jackson goes off, he can tell him, like, hey, Dante Williams, great guy, great coach. They're doing it just as good here, if not better.
Yeah. I mean, you nail it, Ty. Like it's truly the case. I think you have a lot of California influence, right?
Yeah.
And again, like this is where it's been helpful with DeBoer, with the type of staff he's recruited from a standpoint of getting the guys in the right place, but also he has familiarity, right? In his, what would you consider North Dakota or South Dakota, like the Northeast?
I mean, it's certainly Midwest, a part of that area, right?
Yeah. Like, so, and then he goes to the West Coast, right? So that familiarity is there. And then, now he's down the South. So he brought in the right guys, you know what I'm saying, to help with the Southern piece that maybe he wasn't as familiar with. But the fact that he is familiar and there is that, that truthfully, that bond already established is really helpful. And I think, Five Adam, I see you, man. I do think like Mo Linguist. I think as guys get to know him, look at the first two guys we got. In the end of the day, those are I'm pretty sure those Coach Mo's recruits. You know what I'm saying? With the 2026 class. Sorry, that's what I meant. First two guys who got 2026 class. You have two guys who are one safety corner. We'll see which one. The other one for sure a cornerback, right? Gordon, maybe he's a safety. Barney's a cornerback. But I'm pretty sure both of those guys are Mo Linguist recruits. So that's it. That's a big deal, man. Like that just shows he just needs a minute to get established for a second, and then it's going to really 100%. Fall into place. And I think that's going to help with Dejoun too. So
100%. And Jimmy, I agree with you, right? Like I was just making sure that I wasn't giving y'all bad information and saying like, oh, this relationship was so good. And then I look into it and it's like, oh, wait, USC wasn't really in that position. I just wanted to make sure, like always, that I'm giving my opinion is carried by good information. But I do agree with you, man. Mo Linguist, I think, is going to be a really solid hire. And I kind of have a familiarity with Mo Linguist from when he was at A&M.
Oh, yeah.
That guy won battles for A&M. Like, he got some really impressive recruiting wins. And as I'm sitting here, I don't think people realize what it would mean if Bama, with Mo Linguist being brand new to this relationship, once again, KD, Courtney Morgan, not, right? You have two of the biggest brands as we currently sit here and talk in college football that I think are the top two for this kid, Bama and Georgia. Yeah. He's got the relationship with Dante Williams. If Bama wins this battle, don't just, sit up there and say like, oh, Bama got another one, because that's slightly reductionist. This will be a win that sends shockwaves through college football, because it's like, oh, Bama is still doing Bama things in the absence of Nick Saban for some of the top defensive backs. That is going to be a monumental win and really could be a turning point for Alabama recruiting going forward. What do you think?
Well, I think you're spot on. But I also think what is truly helpful. Can you guys hear me okay? Can everyone hear me all right? Good. Yeah. I don't know. My headset's going a little weird. But I think what also is really helpful is that we see these two highly ranked cornerbacks of the 2026 class. I want to give them a shout out, because I think when you see guys commit this early, right? And it happened. It still happens.
I think Barney will end up as a 5-star, Jake.
Oh, I do too. For sure, almost for sure.
He's unbelievable.
And I mean, it's gonna be hard to argue Gordon won't either, just because he's
For sure.
highly ranked. It depends on how
Sure.
he's probably going to have a monster year. So you look at these two guys who are already comfortable enough to say, man, I love these coaches and what they're doing. All it does is kind of get the notice. It puts notice on the 25 class, the guys who come in a little earlier, and like, whoa, what are these guys seeing that I'm not seeing? So hold on, maybe I need to pay attention, because when you have the early commits, there has to be something said about the way these guys are feeling and what you're feeling towards the coaches. And maybe you just haven't given them enough time of the day or thought process, right? Because you're so busy and so hyper focused on trying to pick a school out of your, top 5, 4, 3, or 2. So I think it's really helpful that we saw that,
Yeah, 100%. Adam in here earlier said that he thought he could average 4.2 per carry against USC's defense. I don't disagree. I don't disagree in the slightest, Adam. Yeah, and 5 Adam, like you said, he was the Dallas Cowboys coach.
Yeah.
Jake, you've made a point that I think is great about Mo. It's like, hey, I don't fault you for moving a lot because you continually go up. And right, like if you're moving to analogous positions, that's where I'm like, okay, why?
Mm-hmm.
But he's continually moved up the food chain. And I know one could argue, oh, he just came from being a head coach. There's a massive difference from being the head coach at Buffalo
completely
to being the cornerback coach at Alabama. If he does well here, big time opportunities will come, because Texas A&M, sure, big brand, but it's not Bama.
No,
it's not Bama. Right.
No, 100%.
So I think if he can stay in place for 2 to 3 years, that will do his career wonders.
Mm-hmm.
That's just my opinion. You've expressed the same thing.
Yep.
So I like where Alabama's at with Dejoun Lee, but ladies and gentlemen, if and when Alabama gets this win, see what I did there? Win-win. Don't just sit there. Like, this is one to celebrate. Don't just sit there and say like, oh yeah, you beat the other juggernaut in college football right now, because I can't give Ohio State juggernaut status until I see them actually do it. I think Ohio State's really good. I can't put them, not historically, I'm talking as we currently sit here and speak, I can't put them on the same level as Georgia as we currently sit here. Georgia and Bama are at the mountaintop of college football, looking down and being like, so when are y'all going to get back up here? Michigan had a great win.
They did.
But that team is gone, right?
Yeah.
That coaching staff is gone.
Mm-hmm.
Kirby has just experienced his first round of staff turnover. So now it's Bama and Georgia looking to, if Bama gets this win, celebrate.
100.
Not to say it'd be surprising, not to say that you need to be shocked. I'm saying this would be a very big win because of that continuity of relationship at Georgia, because Georgia is a massive brand, as is Alabama. This would be a huge win, and I absolutely think it's in the cards for Alabama, no doubt about that.
Let me pose this question to you, though, real quick, Ty. And I think about this from a standpoint of there are so many different 5 stars that are like on the cusp, right? Whether you go to, I bring up Ty Jackson a lot from a middle linebacker standpoint. I mean, you look at that depth, I think, gosh, he gets in there. He has a chance to come in and honestly compete this next year for playing time. You look at this, and this is where the one I posed in chat and Undefeated, I posed the same question to you. What is a bigger win from this standpoint? Is it Dejoun Lee getting a cornerback, right? Like in a phenomenal, like your top 3 cornerback, right? Potentially number 1 cornerback in the nation. Or is it a bigger win getting someone, such as like Ty Haywood or David Sanders, right? Or I think those are probably your 2 biggest ones. Which one would be a bigger win? Getting that offensive tackle that everybody, like, filling your offensive line, or filling this gaining depth at the cornerback spot with one of these young guys?
That's a great question. I'm going to go defensive back, and I'm going to tell you why. Because we haven't ever questioned KD's offenses. They've just worked.
Yeah.
right? The question for KD at Washington was, okay, your offense is fantastic. That defense, it's not there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's a principled argument to be made that you remember that what I've told you about the stat that I dug into and found that since 2000, there's only been 3 defenses rank outside the top 30 scoring defenses win a national championship, and none of them were very far outside. There have been none 50 and under, or 50 and over. 50 and over win a national championship. So there's a principled argument to make that if that Washington team had a defense ranked 31st, they win. Right? Like they were in the hundreds. If they even had a defense ranked in the 31st, there's a principled argument that they win the national championship.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't disagree. Five Adams says Dave Sanders. I don't disagree with you, Five Adams. I think that's a great one. But to me, the biggest question about the Kalen DeBoer head coach is, are you going to be able to get defensive wins? Yeah. And if we're just talking purely from a recruiting standpoint, Five, in terms of like stamping, I expect him to get offensive line wins.
Oh,
His
yeah,
offensive line won the Joe Moore last year.
Mm-hmm.
The defense was the question.
Yep.
That would be a way to answer a question for me.
Yeah. And see, here's where I'm at with it, right? And here's my thought process on it is don't get me wrong. I think spot on. You are correct. It was celebrating. You guys remember how I tell you when the sun comes out, it like blinds me. Here we go. Sun's coming out, everybody, getting real bright. So I'm about to shine golden, beautiful side of my face. So here's what I'm saying though, is from this perspective is I would rather go with the offensive lineman. And the reason from that standpoint is I would rather either have like a David Sanders or Ty Haywood. Number one, from an overall, we still need to get depth on that offensive line.
In terms of winning football games, I agree.
Yes,
agree with you. In terms of
you're saying like
questions.
recruiting, like from a recruiting win total, Yes. But I think, is it more significant? I guess that's where I would see your point with that tie. I think it is more significant as far as what it does to the other recruiting minds out there, to the other recruits.
Yes, that's where I'm answering this from. Like one of them
that makes way more sense. That makes sense.
Because it's like, oh, now he's at Bama getting 5-star defensive backs too. Yeah. I expect him to get great offensive linemen. I'm not concerned about that. We've talked that Bama's already doing great work to really make up ground in the Ty Haywood battle. That alone to me says a lot. I think Coach Cap is going to do it. The biggest question we've had is the defense with KD. If he gets that win, and you're right, Five Adams, everybody in chat saying offensive line would mean more. You're right. Mine isn't from a perspective of winning games. Mine is from a perspective of putting college football on notice.
100. No, I think you're right. Trainwreck made me laugh for a second. The sun highlights my stash. Thanks, man.
It does.
It really does. It gets real red. But it would, from a recruiting standpoint, what it does for other recruits, I think. And you're right. Overall, other teams, it does put them on notice. But from which is, it's just so hard, right? Because you want to say, all right, who has the stronger recruiting forte or power, or who are the recruits going to notice more? Do they notice a guy like David Sanders committing to Washington, to Alabama, or do they notice someone more like Dejon Lee? You see what I'm saying? And that's a hard one because Sanders, he seems to be very connected to all these big time recruits. You know what I'm saying?
No, that's a great question. For me, I just liken it back to, I don't think that there's an offensive recruit in the nation that questions KD's system, right? Yeah. Like, I think that is tried, true, and answered. And I know he's not the defensive coordinator. I know that. But he is the CEO, right? And, like, I get after Lincoln because it's like, Lincoln, you're the CEO, and that defense is bunk.
Yeah.
I don't think Washington's defense wasn't that bad. They were not USC bad. That's not my contention.
I mean, they're still pretty... They weren't good. Brutal. They just, what they didn't have which is why I'm happy we have, after looking over what we've looked over, is Washington. The funny part is if you do look at them, they didn't have a defensive line,
No.
which is such a key to run this style of defense. You have to have penetration, right? So,
and 5 Adam, this is kind of why I took the stance I did. Great point, 5 Adam, saying KD can evaluate talent. Parker was 450th in the nation. I don't worry about KD on the offensive line trail.
nah, man.
He knows what he's after. He knows what's going to fit this scheme, and he is going to get those guys because he can say, hey, look what I've done in the past. My offensive lines, they work. Not worried about the offensive line trail. And like I've said, I had an interesting text back in February or March, early March, where someone was telling me, hey, this isn't out yet. But behind the scenes, Bama's making up ground and making up ground quick for top offensive linemen. They were like, it's actually scary what they're doing right now very quickly. And now you look at it, Ty Haywood, who was crystal balled to Oklahoma, I believe On3 just did a video the other day. I saw it on Twitter. I didn't get to watch the video, but I saw the headline, right? I believe it was Newberg did the video. And they were talking about how, hey, Bama is now making this a race with Oklahoma, and they were thought to be the runaway favorite for a Ty Haywood out of Denton Ryan High School right here in Denton, Texas. That's what I mean. Behind the scenes, this Bama staff is doing unbelievable work on the offensive line trail, which, Jake, it gets me to, I'm so surprised that Babalola.
Me too.
That's shocking to me.
I mean, I don't know. I think, again, if you look, offensive line's unique. And I say that in the sense of like each guy on the offensive line almost has like a different personality. But that's also why they all like really mesh together really well, because everyone is somewhat different and similar at the same time. And they love it. There's almost a tighter brotherhood, I would say, in the offensive line compared to any other position group in all of football. But it's funny because you'll get these different personalities. You have some guys who are just like the big nasty, right? You know, he doesn't give a F about anything, chugging the beers. You know what I'm saying? Your typical National Lampoon movie type of guy. You have some guys who are very articulate, right? And very, very particular, almost OCD like.
Yes.
And I think Babalola is more towards that side. I think he's very like particular in how he goes about. Because if you look at like his selections and the words he uses in his interviews compared to words other guys use, I think he's very, very smart. So I think he looks at it from a lot bigger picture than others. And not saying that Alabama's not good for that, but I just think maybe he's really fine-tuned with certain types of feels, you know, emotions, feelings, and that's maybe the route why because they recruited him really hard. And they're probably still recruiting him, but I just don't. I think that's going to be a tough one to get, man. You know,
they were after him they were really after him when this staff was at Washington. And the crazy thing is like Auburn is on this list.
I know, it just kind of came out of nowhere. And I also think, though, the other thing with Babalola that kind of hurt a little bit is he had a really great relationship with Huff.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and so that relationship I think was really close. And that Cap is awesome, but Cap has a different style of energy than Huff, right? Like
That's
Cap's
true.
relationship style. He has, I mean, just look at him in the Juice Squad, man. Like that guy is like, woo, and Huff is too, but Huff is also a little bit more of he kind of goes along with like Ryan Grubb. That's why they kind of fit together personality wise. Is they're not like overly intense. I mean, Grubb they'll yell and scream, no doubt, but they're also very much like you listen to their interviews, the way they talk, right? It's like, yeah, like almost bored with it. So it's interesting. I just think he had a better relationship with Huff. That's what it came down to.
And it's odd because, like, when I look at these the four remaining, he's already had one official visit to Auburn. The other four being Missouri, Stanford, okay, makes sense. Michigan makes sense. Oklahoma, Now, let me explain this, because I think there's a principled argument that Oklahoma has the best offensive line coach in the nation.
Benbow.
That guy, I mean, you look, every guy he puts in the NFL resets the market, it looks like, for the highest contracts. The Chiefs center is arguably the best center in the nation. He has had, I mean, that guy, his development is insane. He just sent another guy to the first round of the NFL draft that was a defensive lineman.
Yeah. Previous defensive lineman. Impressive.
Yeah. Bedenbaugh doesn't get the 5 stars, but he knows what he's after.
Oh man, he's
kind of like Coach Cap, though, like personality wise. And that's where I'm just like,
why doesn't it fit? Yeah.
Yes,
but maybe it's just, again, like just being in place for a minute. You know what I'm saying? Like he's kind of been in place.
That's true. Bedenbaugh's been there forever. He's not leaving.
Yeah.
Right. He's not going to leave unless an NFL job offers him. But even then, he's very particular. Like, I'll tell you one of the things about Bedenbaugh. In order to really succeed on his offensive line, you have to be able to play all 5 positions.
Yeah, Coach Cap is very much like that too. I mean, not maybe that particular, but he's very much that versatile aspect. So I didn't know that, though.
Bedenbaugh that's why I've always thought, like, because on my channel, I do general college football, and everybody's like, why can't Bedenbaugh land the 5 stars? And I'm like, honestly, I think it's because you already have a finite amount of offensive linemen that these guys are like, that's the dude we want. But then I think whenever you take that approach, you already have a finite pool and you make it so much smaller that it's like, okay, well, how many 5 stars are actually fitting into the criteria that Bedenbaugh's after? Let's be honest. The guy's proved that he doesn't need the number 1 offensive tackle in the nation. But Coach Cap, there's a reason why I'm excited about him. I think they're very analogous in terms of their approach, in terms of what they do. And that's why whenever we got him, I was like, okay, with this offense, with this mindset, I feel real good. Still have questions, but guys, I've told you this. The reason, Jake, I'm still like, even though you have talked me off the ledge, Coach Sean has talked me off the ledge, I thought Wolford was going to be an answer, like a definite answer.
Yeah.
And run blocking was great. Pass blocking, not so much. So I just have to see it now. Like I feel good, but I have to see it before I'm like, okay, here we are. Well, I felt burned.
It agreed. I just think that was his strength. And I think that was the direction they were trying to go, was utilize. Obviously, I mean, look at the run game even right now. Yeah, I mean, even the guys would have stayed that left, like those guys are still great. And you look at the overall run game, right? It was going to be good. And so they're going after massive move forward, right? You don't got to move as much. That's not the case in KD's offense. I think what is positive, though, from this standpoint is, and this is a little thing I had heard, sounds like these guys are like in tip-top shape. So you have like Kadyn Proctor, who's down in like 320s. Even like Jaden Roberts Strong is just a beast, man. But these guys are like getting a little more leaned out. So, and there's something you said, and, you see it with bodybuilders all the time, right? They maintain this like high weight or higher weight, but yet they lean out and they just become, you just see them. There's something about this like body shape, right? I see these guys kind of being like that and being able to move and feel way better. And there's something also to be said about being able to, once you get that weight down, a lot of guys talk about it in the NFL who get done, they retire and they drop some pounds. They talk about how much better they feel. Like, gosh, I feel so much better, this and this. There's something to be said about, man, I can move and I have this more bend and flexibility, which is utilized way more in the NFL than just massive size. You just got to look at the average NFL lines, for example, right? And Washington's offensive line, truthfully, last year, that Joe Moore award-winning line, it's not like it was significantly low. It was right around like an average NFL weighted line. I just think you saw guys who had like this different like
to be able to
shape to them. Yeah, they moved. And so, I mean, hence look at the guys who got drafted. And that's not even everybody. You're going to have the 2 who went over to Ole Miss, which, I wish we could have got one of them at least, but both of them, they're going to be high draft picks. They're good.
Yeah, well, some of them ended up at Oklahoma as well.
Which one ended up at Oklahoma? Hatchet?
Oh,
that one of the Hatchet brothers?
Yep.
Wow.
Let me make sure.
No, I think you're right on that one. I'm trying, or because 2 of them ended up at Ole Miss. But regardless, I think you look at this offensive line play, and yeah, it's disappointing last season, right? I think there's just a lot of things that just did not fine tune.
Yeah, Gary and Hatchet.
Okay, yeah, and he's great. So you know, with last season, that like, okay, was it like transitioning, trying to go a new direction? Did we not get was it not a good feel for what we had, or we thought we had this, and we had a difficult time in that, so we had to go a different route, and that didn't fit our personnel, right? You obviously saw Saban. Look at what he did recruiting wise, because this is not KD's recruits on the defensive side. He was already going for speed.
Yeah, he was already going for those versatile guys that we've talked about KD is after. And I'll tell you what else we're after is recognizing Patriot Life with 5 Bama football on YouTube with Kyle Henderson memberships. Thank you very much for that, Patriot Life. If any of you are the recipient of that membership, be sure to thank Patriot Life. Unbelievable support, helps us continue to do what we do, helps continue Coach Jake and myself to be on this stream every single day. And that means the world to us. And to kind of piggyback off of what you're saying, run blocking was fantastic.
Yeah,
run blocking was fantastic for Alabama last year.
Yeah.
But in terms of sacks allowed, they were number 129 out of 131 in the nation. Old Dominion and Colorado were the only 2 offensive lines any worse at keeping the quarterback upright. You should never be the 3rd worst offensive line in the nation at Alabama in keeping a quarterback upright. Now, that's not to totally blame the offensive line. Jalen Milroe, new quarterback. There were a lot of times where he held the ball too long, tried to make a play because he loved the deep shot. He was so good at it. The only quarterback, 5 Adams says center is key. You're not wrong. Left tackle got beat a lot by the speed rush last year. Now, I think he's going to be much better shedding that weight, but it wasn't like I've gone back and watched 5, and it was all over the place, right? And I don't solely blame the offensive line. Let me be very clear here. Jalen held the ball too long at times. Tommy Reese knew that we were great at the deep shot, and we didn't have a whole lot of quick outlets designed to be able to get that pressure off of him. I mean, don't get me wrong. It was multifaceted. Right? It wasn't just one thing. It was multifaceted. And I think that a lot of those are answered, right? Because of Proctor, he is now going to have to slim down to be able to move in this offensive line. Ty, if you have time, would you do a brief rundown of the Washington offensive line scheme that Bama will use? Well, hey, Jake can answer. This is great. I think we'll answer some of the chat's questions. Yeah, so one of the things we've talked about is that whenever you look at this, you have to be able to move in this offensive line scheme. I haven't seen an offensive line pull the way Washington's offensive line pulled, maybe ever. Maybe ever. I saw times where the center is pulling. You don't see that a lot.
No, you don't. I mean, yeah, it's a lot of pin and pull. Obviously, there's a lot of movement on the offensive line. I think the one thing too with those guys, from an overall scheme standpoint, was like the communication was really on point. That was something that was impressive. That's something that we get this year at Bama compared to what Washington had, what Bama had last year. Sure. Okay. Here's the deal. If you're having struggles getting the ball back, it means you're rushing yourself. Number one. Number two, it means you're putting yourself under immense pressure. So your thought process is not very clear. So you're trying to, from the center, what he's trying to do is make all these reads and trying to communicate, but he's not understanding or he's not seeing it clearly. So he's confusing himself, doubting what he's thinking about, rethinking about it. I've talked about the OODA loop before, right? Observe, orient, right? OODA loop, decide and act. Okay. So, and that's that thought process. And what he was doing was the way you defeat somebody in the OODA loop and you beat them is you make them not be able to go through their full thought process. You have to stop them at a certain point that they have to restart. He was basically Seth was doing that to himself. So then when it was time, now he's like feeling rushed and that ball's not even getting back. That's how come I have a hard time putting last year on Jalen Milroe. Yeah, there's some technique stuff. There's some things, but I think he got so conditioned. What's that? Whose theory is that, Ty? What's that theory called when you condition the dog?
Pavlov.
Yeah, Pavlov theory. That's what it was with Jalen Milroe last year. Because go listen to Jordan Palmer.
Well,
Some of you guys have seen what he said. He's like, dude, the ball hits the ground all the time. Like, you know how hard that is for a quarterback?
This is something I've talked about all the time, Jake, and this is why I've remained so steadfast that Jalen Milroe is going to be in for a massive season. Whenever we look, he had so many times where the ball was on the ground. And Palmer did this great explanation of this.
Yeah, man.
He said, when you get the ball, usually your vision's already here. And you're not evaluate the pass
using
rush.
Peripheral vision to catch the ball.
Yes, and
your
you're
eyes
already
are,
looking.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden you have to bend down and get the ball. And then your first thought is, okay, where are my wide receivers? Oh, geez, Louise, I just got sacked by a speed rush because I can't even look up by the time that I'm getting wrecked. And listen, when an NFL quarterback is pointing this out, or a former one, it's time, it might be time to take notice, right? I've said this, Jake, you've said this, Coach Sean has said this, Coach Smook, Kyle, Coach Jay. I mean, we've all said this. Adam, here he goes. He says, blame everyone but Milroe. But
we can't get on this right now. We got way too many other important topics. We've gone over a lot. It's not Milroe. Look, we're not saying Milroe was perfect.
As I just said that he held the ball too long a few seconds ago.
There are a lot of things he did wrong. But I will say, again, actually, I won't say it because I already said it, and we're going to talk about something else. Go ahead, Ty.
And we have some news, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, give it to me. Let's go, baby.
Not Bama related.
Oh, shit. Okay, that's
cool. 0-3.
Uh-huh.
Report. James Franklin has been accused of interfering with medical decisions on players by a former Penn State physician per the Philly Inquiry. According to a source, numerous meetings in which he said Franklin pressured him, Lynch, and the chief athletic director to alter their medical decisions and the treatment advice and options given to players.
Whoa. Here we go. Here goes the offseason circus. That's for sure. Between Florida and now Penn State. That's bad. If that somehow gets comes out, even that is real bad.
That's real bad.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about that guy's gone. Like that's not a Billy Napier where they let him play through the season. I mean, he's gone.
Wow. I'm reading the article right now, ladies and gentlemen. And I want y'all to go read this because good journalism needs to be read, right? It needs to be supported. So I'm not going to give you the details, but it is an On3 report.
Yeah.
Tweeted out by On3, wrote by Nick Costco. I hope I said your name correct. I'm not going to get into the specifics, but I will say,
are you reading it, Ty?
Yeah, it's bad.
While you read it, I just want to answer this real quick.
Please.
Max Tree, you said analysts is used heavily with KF staff. I wonder if you mean KD, but based on analytic, who would be the best 5 linemen? I'm kind of guessing what you're saying because there's a little bit of spell there. I know it's hard at times if you're doing it on your phone, but no worries. So yeah, I mean, I get you. I think the best 5 linemen in my mind, I go with Kadyn Proctor, obviously Roberts and Booker. Parker is phenomenal communicator. That's why I think this offensive line, in my mind, my argument to this real quick before we jump back into this breaking news, it's going to again be impactful to the. We say it's not Bama related, but guess what? Everything that's happening right now, especially with these bigger schools, in the recruiting being in a vital point of the year, especially before fall ball, it is actually really important. So this news all does relate to Alabama football. But going back to what I was going to say, and then I do think like you see potentially Pritchett, but I think this offensive line is a Joe Moore competing for the Joe Moore Award this year. So that's my answer to that. I hope that helps. But go ahead, Ty.
Yeah, y'all got to go read that article.
That's crazy, man.
It's going to be an interesting offseason for Penn State. That's all I'll say. I will answer this question because I have a little bit different vibe than you do.
Oh, okay. Yeah, please do
I'm going to start from the left and go right. We only differ in one area. I'm going to go Proctor. I think he's going to come back in, sew up that spot, especially as he's losing weight. Jake, you have a mustache, so you'll know this. It's itchy. It's itchy, right? Like so many times you're talking and it like itches.
Mine doesn't really itch, man. I got that. I don't know. I feel like I got a good cowboy stash.
Maybe I'm just a hairy dude, right? Like
you're just long. Maybe you just got to get it a little more evened out, you know?
I think that's what it is. But I'm going to go Proctor, left tackle, right? I think he comes back in here. I think he's going to sew up that job. I don't know who's going to take it from him. I don't.
Yeah.
I don't have to talk about left guard. Booker. Okay. That is what it is. Center, I'm going Parker. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Right guard, once again, easy, Roberts. But where we differ is right tackle. I'm going Formby because I think in this new offensive scheme, Formby is better suited for the pinning and pulling than is Pritchett.
I do like that just based on what I saw with Pritchett last year. I'll tell you right now, like his movement, his feet movement, you know, and again, like kind of making a little, don't make poor choices. He got in a little bit of trouble just recently. It wasn't huge. It's not like it was a DUI or anything like that, but you know, just I think it was like speeding or whatnot and didn't pull over. But you can't make bad decisions because that impacts, like, you know, you making bad decisions off the field. What's going to happen when you're in pressure in a game? Because KD compares a lot of that stuff. That's why they really talk about character and integrity and who you are as a person in their recruiting. So I could see. I like that, Ty. Now that you say that, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like,
that's the only reason. Like, I think Pritchett's really good, but move him to right tackle. Five Adams says, I don't know that you're wrong, Five Adams, but in this offensive scheme, when you really look at how Kalen DeBoer runs his offense with the amount of pinning and pulling, I think Formby. Well, as far as I'm aware, Chris, I thought Formby was looking at the second spot at that right tackle, but Miles McVay, right?
Yeah,
like he is a dude as well. He is a dude as well, no doubt about it. But if I'm sitting here right now, my 5 offensive linemen, left tackle Proctor, left guard Booker, center Parker Brailsford, right guard Roberts, and right tackle Wilkin Formby.
Yeah. I like that. I think McVay definitely is putting up that fight. We kind of heard that through spring in general, and man, what I'm excited for too is I like that we got Gino Van, can't say his last name, but the guy from Michigan State in the transfer. He already has that fluidity playing a little bit of center, right? And he understands Cap's kind of coaching style, so that helps. I do think like Rock Montgomery is going to really move into that backup center role. Don't get me wrong, he's going to kind of be able to fill gaps all over. We got a lot of versatility. I think a lot of guys we forget talking about from a freshman standpoint who's been very impressive is Casey Poe.
Yep. And he's got a ton of versatility to his game.
Huge. Like, yeah, I love it.
We talked earlier about Biedenbow saying like, hey, if I'm getting you, I really, in a perfect world, he needs his guys to be very, very versatile. Casey Poe can play a lot of different positions on this offensive line. A lot of different positions. But yeah, it's just because I think Formby is going to be able to move better in terms of the pinning and the pulling, right? I think that he's going to win that right tackle position. But we'll see. I love that there's competition there. That's always great to see. But yeah, I really like Formby. We'll see. So that's going to be interesting. Now let's go to the defensive back wins and losses.
Oh, got you.
All right, defensive back wins and losses. I have Alabama's work right here.
Mm-hmm.
And this is not including what we got in terms of, let me write this down. We got Morgan, we got Zabian, Zay Mincy, Dre Kirk, and Mbakwe. Mm-hmm. So, in terms of losses, you have Caleb Downs to Ohio State. That hurts. And I love what we did in terms of additions, but that hurts.
Yeah. I mean, the guy is, he's a legacy dude. He's one of those, what they call those types of players, kind of once in a lifetime type of player. I don't think we've ever seen someone like that at safety. So young. I mean, yeah, he made errors and mistakes, but you definitely saw his progression right through the season, and what he was able to do. And just the fact that he was able to pick up these concepts playing the position that he played, within this cover match scheme that Saban ran, pretty big deal. Granted, I will say it's a little easier on the safeties. Where it's hard is on the star and or a star in the corners.
Yeah,
that's where it becomes difficult, because that's basically where your switch off is at. So
yeah, that's what made it so impressive. I don't know if you remember, but Brian Branch and Malachi Moore's first year,
generational. Yeah,
I mean they were battling it out for that star position because they were that impressive. And now you look at Brian Branch in the NFL, and it's like, oh yeah, no, this is exactly why you were talked about as that guy.
Yep, man.
So
that's true.
Caleb Downs to Ohio State. You also had Des Ricks to Texas A&M. And remember, Des Ricks was set to be the #1 defensive back in this past class, right? He reclassified and was still a 5-star. I don't know why he left.
Did you hear how Des did in spring? Did you hear anything? Was he playing? Because I know
I don't think he made it to spring.
No, Texas A&M.
Oh no, I haven't kept up with.
I tried. So I checked, right, because I want to know how these guys are doing outside. Obviously, Caleb Downs was fine. I think there was a little bit of transition, but not much. Smart player. I didn't hear much about Ricks though in spring.
He's still so young though, right?
I
like
know.
He reclassified a year. High upside. I really wanted him to stay.
Yeah, I would have liked to see him stay. But I think there is probably one other dude who I would have rather seen stay.
Well, we then get into Trey Amos, who went to Ole Miss, right? Who, whenever he came in, looked very impressive.
Yeah, it's a bummer that he left, man. You'd be starting right now in this defense. You'd feel really good. So that one's kind of a hit too.
Yep, that one right there, rough. Then you get into Jameer Grimsley, who was a member of this 2024 class who got out of his letter of intent whenever Saban had retired and went to Florida. Versatile athlete, was looked at as either a wide receiver or a defensive back. I think settled in at defensive back. Excited to see what he does there. Get into Earl Little, going to Florida State. And that is going to be interesting because Florida State, he went to Florida State, and I don't know that he's going to start because they look to get another guy in his position at the spring portal window.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I liked Earl Little a lot.
Yeah, what do you think, man? I liked him. I don't know if I liked him as much as like Amos, right, and whatnot. Yeah. But I don't feel as like hurt with him going. There's one other, and you're gonna name him here shortly, but there's one dude who I know from what I've heard looks the part for cornerback.
For cornerback?
Yeah, that left.
Interesting. You have Christian Story, who went to Kentucky at safety.
Yeah, no.
You have Jake Pope, another safety who's at UGA.
He could have maybe would have with Jake Pope. I don't know.
Peyton Woodyard, another safety, going to Oregon.
It's hard to say if he was a loss. I saw him in the A-Day game, right? He was coming up, he's making some plays, maybe a little hesitant here and there, but I had seen that in his film. He's not like a come up and blow you up type of guy. For how big he is, I thought he would be more like bring it in and just absolutely hammer you at the point of attack. But man, I didn't see that with him, man.
I think the staff was trying to get him over to cornerback because of the depth there. And I think maybe they thought that he was a bit better suited there, but I think he's a talented guy and going to be interesting to see what he does. Tony Mitchell, undecided on where he's going, safety. And that was our losses. So I don't, who are you referring to?
Kite.
Oh, Antonio Kite going to Auburn.
I'm going to tell you, Antonio Kite.
See, I kind of disagree with you there. He got burnt, chewed up, and spit out in that Auburn spring game.
He did. Don't get me wrong. He got spanked in the game, but it sounded like through practice, though. Through practice, he was starting to really catch on to some things. Now,
gotcha.
I feel like Kite was one of those guys from a technical standpoint. I really liked him, and I think he just needed time to develop. I hate that he bounced to Auburn. That was frustrating, man.
Gotcha. See, I think I'm out of all of these, if we're talking quarterbacks, the one that makes me the most upset, yours is Kite, mine's Trey Amos.
Yeah, well, I feel like that's a given cornerback.
Yeah.
Trey, just because of his experience of what he would have.
I did forget about Antonio Kite, though. I have my list right here, and I forgot all about him.
Yeah, Kite was the one for me. But you do know, who is one guy who stood out to me real quick from that standpoint when we were talking about I know we're going to get into this with the safeties, or I guess we're doing that now. But one guy who stood out to me, right? And I saw him in on a lot of tackles. He was kind of flying all over the field. Surprised me, did surprise me a lot. And I was really happy about it. For me was where are you at, bro? Was Bray Hubbard.
Yeah.
Bray Hubbard, guys. I like his tenacity, man. Like the guy was I was very impressed with you. If you watched like point of attack, he was getting in on all of those, dude. He was getting in on a lot of tackles. I mean, he was out there flying around. I was impressed. Bray was a, multi-dimensional athlete, but, he was a quarterback, right? So you would hope he has a kind of a good understanding. And once he really gets to feel out and grow into the safety role, like, is he going to be a guy that we don't really realize like what we have? You know what I'm saying? From a very football IQ, right? And just mental and just tough. I like it, man. I like that grit. I love seeing that stuff, dude.
And don't get me wrong, I do like Antonio Kite, but when I watched that Auburn spring game, I was like, ooh, yeah. Cam Coleman put him in a blender like 3 or 4 times. And those were the ones where Cam Coleman was streaking wide open, nobody around him, and he was hitting him with double moves. Like, that was where I was like, oh, boy.
But Coleman's good.
Yeah, but
he's good.
I don't know that he would have been able to hold off Zabian Brown, Zay Mincy, or Mbakwe.
No, that's a true fact. I think Mbakwe beats him alone with speed and athleticism. I think Zabian Brown beats him with technical skill, and I think Zay Mincy just beats him overall with strength. And like I was talking about earlier when we were on with Kyle, was he's a big dude. He uses his body really well to cut off routes. And then his stride is really long. And then when it comes down to catching that ball and he bodies up on you, you're going to have a difficult time because of his length to get into these like windows to get that ball out.
Yeah, I certainly hope Antonio Kite does well at Auburn, but I just remember watching that Auburn spring game, and the first thing I was thinking is that secondary is getting whipped. Like,
yeah, man. Well, don't get me wrong. I think they are gonna get whipped. I just saw him. I was just disappointed because I saw him from a development standpoint as like.
I think he's got a very high upside.
Yeah, that was my thing. right? Now that he's over at like Auburn, do I want him to be successful? I mean, I want everyone to be successful at the end of the day. I don't want to sit there and be an asshole and be like, oh, you went here, screw you, right? Because that's not what it's about.
Yeah, I want him to be successful.
Yeah,
I just was
100.
like, wow. I would certainly would have rather him stay. But let's talk about what Alabama got, because they lost a lot from this room. In terms of the transfer portal, you get Damani Jackson from USC to Bama. Great addition there. I haven't hid how excited I am for Damani Jackson.
Yeah.
I think we're looking at an all SEC year for Damani Jackson. Then we look at King Mack coming from Penn State to Alabama. Listen, Alabama lost the number one player available in the transfer portal, regardless of position, in Caleb Downs, the number one safety, but they replaced him with 2 top 5 safeties available in the transfer portal, King Mack and Keon Sapp.
Yeah.
That's impressive. That's impressive. I think King Mack's got a lot of upside. I'm very excited to see whenever he gets his time. I think he's going to be pushing for the 2 deep. Mm-hmm. Really impressed. What do you think about King Mack?
So I love King Mack. Obviously, he was ranked very, very high, one of the top safeties in the nation. I love that, he took that year and got his development in. Explosive. It would be interesting to see where they play him. You know what I'm saying? Like, where does he fit best overall? Do they throw him back at like the free safety, or does he play like a rover? See, in my mind, I guess I feel comfortable. I put him at the free safety, right? So you can bracket routes. You can get over the top. He can utilize his athleticism, his speed, because he's very fast. Whereas in like someone like Cam Howard, because King, he's here for a while, right? He's a redshirt freshman. And then you have like Cam Howard, right? A guy who, is he a Husky? Nah, probably not. Is he a rover? I could see him definitely being a rover. You know what I'm saying? He has the body type for that. He has athleticism for it. He looks like he's aggressive. He's a striker. And I mean, King Mack is too, but like, you just that's where I see Howard, right? So I like King Mack a lot. I think that was a big, big pickup. And then I think where the most significant one is with Sapp, right? I think Sapp is just, we saw where he was going, and with his upwards trend towards the end of the season at Michigan, breaking in, obviously making some really big plays. I mean, you can tell he's like right there, and now he gets to step into this role, and I'm excited for him. The biggest thing will be with those DBs is going to be just, again, repetitions and getting that communication down. That familiarity with each other, right, is a big key aspect to that, especially in this defense. Granted, it's split down the middle of the field, right? So one side's running one defense, the other one's running a different style, but on the calls. But at the same time, if you're playing a single high safety, right, you're going to utilize, you got to really understand and have that ability to cover a lot of space. And I think Sapp can do that, obviously. I mean, the guy's a great pickup. Yeah, great pickup.
Completely agree. Really excited about him. Then we get into Deshaun Jones, cornerback from Wake Forest. I like Deshaun Jones, especially because he's going to have familiarity with kind of what they're trying to do from a defensive standpoint. He was a guy that a lot of other schools were after. LSU wanted him, just to name one. What's your thoughts on Jones?
Man, you guys have kind of heard me talk about Jones. Like, I'm really high. I'm really, really high on Jones. Like, Jones, for me, he is that dude, man. Like, I'm like, oh yeah, because I love how aggressive he is. I love his style of play within the zone. I love his feel for the passing lanes. I love how he uses his eyes. He's very reactive, but he also does a good job of anticipating. All right, so he anticipates very well by using his eyes, and that is something we have to. It's at times. Hopefully, our young guys pick this up pretty quick, who are going to get playing time. We saw maybe in the game they were a little slower in it, which is expected right now. But right, that vision and break coverage, you have to be disciplined enough to watch that quarterback, really zone, like watch that quarterback. He's going to tell you and determine what's going to happen, right? Like, how deep does your drop have to be? because based on his drop, and based on what he's going to show you pretty quickly, right, is going to determine when you need to start breaking into knowledge of the route tree that can come out of that drop and what his body is already starting to do. We taught there's a good example that there's not a lot of guys, and Saban said this a lot, like Dan Marino out there who can just like, I mean, it's coming out like a freaking rocket, man, like a shooting star, boom, right? There's not a lot of guys putting that much heat on it. I think Penix probably was the closest thing we saw to a quarterback putting heat on a ball. I'll tell you that. Whoa, velocity wise. So I think Deshaun Jones already has that discipline kind of instilled. We saw in his gameplay, and it helps him a lot. And we see him, and when he really steps up, and the guy pops too. When he hits somebody, he goes through him. I like his cornerback play, man. I love it.
Yeah, 100%. And then we get into the freshman additions, which are Red Morgan, Zabian Brown, Zay Mincy, Dre Kirkpatrick Jr., and Jalen Mbakwe. So, great haul there. I've called it Nick Saban's parting gift. So you do have some losses. Let's be honest here. And listen, I'm being halfway salty about Kite, right? Because in a perfect world, I would have wanted Kite to stay. I think that the two biggest losses in the defensive back room are Caleb Downs, Trey Amos, right?
Yeah.
And Trey Amos looked fair. Really good.
Of course, Caleb Downs 100, but you're right. Trey Amos, in the end of the day, like I agree with you.
And I do agree with you as well. Kite has got a really high upside. I wonder, was it a year away? Like, what was the time frame there? And Bama needed DBs now. You know what I mean? Like that's my biggest question there. But listen, I do wish Kite to be successful over there, because I want to see all the guys who are in college football be successful, no matter who they play for. And then the freshman additions, I think they're fantastic. Just absolutely an unbelievable haul.
Yeah, I like it. I mean, even it's kind of wild, that you look, even with losing Caleb Downs, even with losing Peyton Woodyard, you can still look at the room. Now, I do think we definitely need the depth. I'm happy with what we got. It will treat us good. I think there's versatility there that guys can move to different roles if need be. This defense also allows for that versatility to be there in the backfield, right? That's why they teach why Kane Womack teaches this defense. You don't go in and learn you're not going in day one, and the concepts when they're install, they're not teaching you like how to play. It's not like do your job. This is all you need to learn. They teach it from wide to narrow, right? So the cone and the teaching, the concept, all right, this is the concept of cover three. This is what he's doing. This is what the linebackers do, even from a standpoint of a stunt. But for now, they're really like showing you this dimension of all of it, right? Now we break it down to situational awareness, I guess you could say, but there's another word used for it. But basically, okay, in this situation, we would run this, and this. Based on this concept, this is how it defends this. So they're educating these guys, like giving them increasing their football IQ first, right? Because they're all super athletes. Everyone out there is a super athlete. We're getting your football IQ there first, making sure you understand these things. So that way, when you step onto the field, right, and you go to rep this on the field, you have a general idea of what it should look like. And you should then be able to understand, okay, based on the concept, the situation, I can do my role this way because he's doing his role this way and he's doing his job this way. So I like that style of teaching. That's how I teach when I do something. So one of the cool things with me, and Ty, I guess I've never shared this before either, is when I was in law enforcement, when I was a police officer, I was actually a field training officer. So I trained all new people coming in, new hires, and I was also a background investigator at the same time. It was a lot of work, but so I would go out, I'd find the guys that we are going to hire. Are they good people? Who are they? get into crazy depth, and then I train them. And my training, right, it depends on each person where you had to spend time with, right? Because there's those 3 styles of learning. But in the end, like, you want to train them from this standpoint of, do you see the big picture? Now can you narrow it down and understand how your job relates to the big picture? So I love that, man. Like, absolutely love that. And I think it's going to help these young guys get into it. And Lynn, I see your comment, man. Merrill, you'd be surprised how many young DBs don't understand the route tree based on QB drop. Yeah, I mean, it is crazy. Why? You know what is wild, Ty, is like, coming out of high school, you got to really, man, nowadays, I think you are getting a lot better coaches who are getting a little more in depth, but it does not feel like these things, like we talk about, like what Lynn just says with the route tree. Like, I go back and I look at high schools and I'm like, man, there's not a lot of guys teaching that stuff. You know, maybe you learn it in 7-on-7s nowadays, because 7-on-7s became huge, right? But man, like, those are so important key aspects in, like, training yourself not just to be so one-dimensional, you know?
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, even from a wide receiver perspective, that's why whenever we talked the other day about Bonds, I was like, hey, Bonds is fantastic. Great talent. I think he's going to have a big year at Texas. But do I think that that's a major loss for Alabama? I mean, in a perfect world, you'd love to have him here. But Ryan Williams is a junior, because he reclassified. He's a junior. As a junior in high school, I thought had a more advanced route tree than Isaiah Bond coming out his senior year, or even Isaiah Bond until this past year. And like, that's an example of what you're talking about. Ryan Williams, he can run every route on the tree.
Yeah,
every single one of them as a junior in high school. You don't see that. Not at the ability he has. And so already I was like, okay, well, you know, Ryan Williams doesn't have the experience of Isaiah Bond, but in terms of talent, Bonds has got unbelievable deep speed. He ran a 10.49 as a junior or a senior in high school. Ryan Williams ran a 10.49 as a sophomore. He's a little bit taller. I think his route tree is a little bit better, especially if I'm evaluating them as Isaiah Bond as a junior and Ryan Williams as a junior. Isaiah Bond didn't have the route tree Ryan Williams did at their same point in development, right? Yeah. So it's interesting because I think you hit the nail on the head. That's something that we see defensive backs don't have the understanding of the route tree. But I do think it's getting better. I think 7-on-7 is interesting because it can be such a powerful tool, but it's all about, like, what are we using this for? Right? Like,
yeah, man. Because, like, you know, it's funny because you got all the hype videos now, right? With, like, all these people going out there and doing hype videos of, like, beating someone 7-on-7. Well, that's great when you don't have pads on and you're basically, the pass interference is through the roof on you, whether it's on the offense or defensive side. You know, a lot of it just looks like junk. I don't want to. 7-on-7s yeah, that's cool. But make sure you're utilizing it for, like, the right reasons, and you can really utilize that to perfect your route running ability. You can utilize that to understand how to get good separation. You can utilize it to understand the route tree, right, on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, 100%. And as we're getting out of here, I starred some of these and meant to get to them earlier. Adam asked earlier, what do you guys think of recruiting 3 stars? I think some of them can be developed into great players. I 100% agree. I 100% agree. Listen, a lot of 3 stars are guys that could easily be 4 stars had they camped, had they done this, had they done that. But there is also, you know, there is a question. Do stars matter? And the answer, unfortunately, is yes. And I'm going to tell you why. Because they have developed a blue chip ratio. There's only been 2 teams to win a college football playoff game that didn't satisfy the blue chip ratio. There's only been 5 teams to make a college football playoff that didn't satisfy the blue chip ratio. That's statistically significant, meaning, like, hey, the recruiting services don't always get this right. But at the point where 35 out of the 40 teams that have made a college football playoff satisfy the blue chip ratio, that's statistically significant. Whenever we look, and you are 11 times more likely to be drafted in the first round as a 5-star than, say, a 2 to 3-star, that's significant. That's statistically significant. And then you talk about getting drafted overall, and then that's a totally different stars are not the end all be all. Evaluation is king, right?
Yeah,
Like if
that's
you're
king.
asking me, evaluation is before stars. But there is as much, and I hate that it is this way, but the blue chip ratio has proved good time and time and time again for a reason, right? Like you are far more likely to make the college football playoffs if your roster features above 50% blue chips on it. Jake, what do you think?
Yeah, I think you're spot on. I think I think today's stars do have a significant play. I think they've done a better job over the years,
I
right?
agree. I agree.
Right,
Because
because if
early
I
on,
go,
it was wild.
yeah, oh my God, I go back to 2000s. I mean, I go back to when I was playing, man. Like how it just is kind of wild the way the star system ranked. Don't get me wrong, they got it right with some guys, but I think another aspect of that during those time frames was like this. You only had a few guys going out there watching people and grading them. Okay. I don't think social media has definitely impacted that and has helped get a larger view on players, but not everyone, because they cannot get to everyone. Not everyone gets to camps, right? Brooks is a great example of that, our wide receiver, right? Latier Brooks, great example of a dude who people had heard. They saw him in games, but from a camp, he doesn't camp. He doesn't social media. So how do you grade that? Okay. That's where I think one thing I am extremely impressed with, and there was a comment earlier where I will I can't remember who gave that comment earlier, but it was, hey, you should shout out our personnel staff who's done an amazing job.
True.
Correct, and correct. And I have shouted them out before, and I'll do it again. But that's where you have guys, Courtney Morgan, Jatavius Sanders, right? Ephraim Hodges. Did I say that right? Aaron Hodges, Ephraim. That's from the chat. Aaron Hodges. And Tony Jones. Okay, you got these guys there, and there's plenty more. And I've kind of a few months back I brought up some other names as well. But there's a lot of guys who are out there watching guys and doing really good evaluations based on kind of this formula in this thought process that Coach Kalen DeBoer and Courtney Morgan, these guys have developed, and seeing the right things they want to see in guys to go after them. So I wouldn't so much be as concerned with some of the 3 stars that we see them recruiting, and people are like, why are we doing that? Well, that's difficult, man. Like, because I think they see something that they know they can work with, and as they get to know the young man, now they get to really dig into. Again, I was a background detective. The idea of that was to, especially in law enforcement, you have to go in depth on these dudes to make sure. I'm going to tell you a story. I hired a guy at a background and then made him quit when he was training with me. And the reason is because I realized that one of my first ones I did, that I made a mistake. And I made a mistake in the sense that he just was not mature enough. He wasn't ready. And when I was his training officer after I hired him, it's very rare, that doesn't typically happen, but I was his training officer. It was me who cost the department like time and money. I realized I made that mistake, and I had to go to that guy and say, hey man, like you're just not cut out for this right now. You need to go do some other things in life and experience life. Right. So going through that process and making sure you really go in depth on somebody is really important, so you don't run into issues of, oh man, this guy is not panning out the way we thought he was going to pan out. Right. And that's where maybe the stars tend to not be as much of a concern. Now, we do give a lot of credit now today to those evaluators within like On 3, 247 Rivals, right? I don't know. I know there's a lot of other ones too, but between those guys, they're doing a really good job. So they're able to get better evaluation on that.
Yeah. So there was an interesting thing, right? Like, I'm trying to find the article that talked about like the stars and how they were drafted, but they talked about this And like I said, guys, because everybody's saying, oh, well, this guy was a 3-star. One, there are 100 times more 3-stars than there are 5-stars.
Oh,
just
yeah.
about, right? Like, so just from a
We've
pure
talked about this,
numbers
yeah.
game, right? That's likely. Two, someone said Marvin Harrison was number 160 nationally, so he was still a blue chip, which still satisfies the blue chip ratio argument, right?
Yeah, blue chip is different than 5-star. We should say that.
Yes, I don't know if
5 stars are blue chip, but yeah, I don't know if everyone understands.
4 stars are blue chips as well. So if he was number
Mm-hmm.
160 nationally, 21st wide receiver, he was still a blue chip, which still would satisfy the blue chip ratio.
Yeah.
But let me see if I can't find this. Hold it down for me for a second.
Yeah, do your thing. But so we're getting back into like we were saying with the star rating. It is still important. Like Ty's spot on. Blue chip ratio. I probably should have said that a little earlier, but you don't have to be a 5-star to be a blue chip. That's for sure. So it's just within a certain ranking. And then you got some guys who do end up being in positions, right, where they just don't get the same exposure. I can think of several guys. I mean, I was one of them. The level of competition you're playing against, the type of exposure you're getting. I had to go to camps myself to get noticed and just go perform from that standpoint, just from I guess to get more notice, right? I was blessed being young and being noticed, but at the same time, you have to go out there and do that. But the grading and how it goes about, there's a lot of unique things, and only certain amount of guys get that. So I agree with you. Like, stars do matter. I think the blue chip ratio matters.
Is 4 stars. Lance saying top 200. It's 4 stars. There's no top. It's 4 stars.
Straight across.
The blue chip ratio is the amount of 4 and 5 stars you have. The overall number of 3 stars kind of moots my point. Yeah, right. Like, there's whenever you're just looking at this, if there are, okay, there's 32 picks per round times 7, right? There's only, let's say that you're looking at just juniors and seniors. That would be, there are 64 available 5 stars, right? Out of how many draft picks? Anybody have a calculator? Because now I'm trying to spread myself real thin between 3 articles and calculators and.
You want to
so
see
224 draft picks there are. 32 times 7.
Yeah.
Is 224. So even if we'd looked and every 5-star was selected between their junior and senior year, that's 64. There are 1,000 3-stars. So you could have a draft just of 3 stars. From a proportionality standpoint, that's where we're looking at, like, proportionality. And if we look at the first round of the NFL draft this year, 11 were 5 stars, 12 were 4 stars, 8 were 3 stars, and 1 was a 2-star or below. Right? So just looking, and then we look at this right here, there's another interesting. So, like, guys, I'm not saying stars are the end-all, be-all, but there's a reason why Nick Saban was pushing for #1 recruiting classes.
Yeah.
Right? Like, there's a reason. There was also a proportionality of guys drafted, right? So you are 90 or 9.7 times more likely to be drafted as a 5-star as compared to a 2-star, 4.9 times more likely to be drafted as a 4-star as opposed to a 2-star, and 1.5 times more likely to be drafted as a 3-star as opposed to a 2-star. There were 14 5-stars drafted, which was 43% of 5-stars were drafted, as opposed to 22% of 4-stars and 6.6% of 3-stars. Yeah. So, like, I get what y'all are saying, but there's a proportionality standpoint to this as well, right? Like, in terms of statistics. So that doesn't mean that a 3-star can't play at a 5-star level. I mean, goodness gracious, Josh Jacobs should have been a 5-star all day long. All day long. It's just, there's a reason why we say in the SEC you need a top 10 recruiting class, because if you have a top 10 recruiting class, you are getting the talent eligible.
Yeah, it takes away. It's like kind of takes away the guessing game, I think you should say, right?
Yes.
Like, who's going to develop, who's not going to develop. Like, again, that has a lot to do with your evaluations even before you offer them scholarships, right? They're not going to just give you a scholarship because of this, or this, right? It's just so it's tough on that situation, but that's why, Saban says it, right? Why they went after what they went after. It's more of a sure bet, right?
And to your point, evaluation is king. So understand when I say do stars matter? Yes, so long as you're not putting stars above everything.
Yeah.
Stars is like second or third on the list. Evaluation and intangibles are 1 and 2.
Yeah.
And then that's where you're like, okay, well, if this guy, I evaluate him and I like him better than I like the 5 stars, then take him because he's much more likely to fit your scheme. He's much more likely to do all that. So it's not, my point is I'm not saying that it's impossible. I am just saying there's some really interesting studies done on this. There's some really interesting data done on this that I find just absolutely, I'm a nerd. I'm a nerd. Y'all know this. I find this fascinating, right?
Yeah, Ty, you're a nerd. It's all good, though.
Yeah.
No, it's good. It is good. It is fascinating, though, when you look at it and you look at, Saban was always making really, really good bets, put it that way. He's not going out gambling. Okay. Not saying like KD and those guys are going out gambling, but I do think they're doing a really good job of utilizing like a point in time, like as they go through this process, especially early on, because they got to win. They have to win to make it similar to what we were seeing in the past. But right now they're using this process to kind of game it a little, right? They're saying, okay, we know we evaluate like top tier talent.
Yeah,
we know what we
valuation
go
is
after,
king.
And we're really good at identifying this. I mean, there's a reason why we weren't hearing a whole lot about DBs we were recruiting for a minute. Why do you think that is? It's because there's hundreds of thousands of tapes to go through and watch guys and see what the rumor mill is. And we evaluate them. Do we like what we see? Should we go after them? Okay, let's find out a little bit about him. Is he going to fit like our culture? Nope. All right, never mind. Move on. Keep going. There's just so much you're constantly watching and looking for. So, and that's where those relationships with others, I guess, why Courtney Morgan is so important, because of how many relationships he does have with other people, that he can kind of get that information earlier and get to some of these guys beforehand, before everyone figures out. I mean, look at Russell, right? Our Duncanville quarterback.
Yeah, I really, really like him.
Dude.
Really like him. Someone said that I think it was 5 Adam says that you like him as much as Juju Lewis. I agree. I love Juju Lewis's game. I would love for Alabama to add him in, but you're not going to see me lose a second worth of sleep if it's Russell instead. I like him just as much. I think that guy's spectacular.
Dude, I'm gonna tell you right now, like, he gives me like the Michael Penix vibes. For sure. I think that's what they see in him. I think that's why Sheridan's going so hard after him, because Sheridan's the recruiter for Penix, right? Like, that's how Penix ends up in Indiana. And I think Sheridan's like, oh my gosh, I found my next Penix.
And listen, he plays at Duncanville.
Yeah, dude, baller.
Right? Baller. Like, I know what Duncanville is. I know who Duncanville plays, and that is a rough and tough schedule. That's tough. So Todd says, I think Russell comes to Bama. I sure hope so. Y'all don't understand how happy I would be if we get to exit that visit, get the commitment, get the flip from Russell, and then boom, he's the guy. I'm going to be like, let's go. Let's go.
I mean, dude, look at this, man.
Look, David, you're all good, man. You're all good. Jake has talked about those interviews time and time again. Great content is great content, and great content needs to be recognized.
Yeah, 100%, man. Yeah, I've talked about that a lot. I always am talking about like all the other stuff that, like last night, you introduced me to Jason, right?
Yeah.
But Jason over at Hall of Fame College Football, Jason and the coach, their channel, they're the Oklahoma guys, right? But their
coach
channel
is a Notre Dame guy.
Yeah, he is a Notre Dame guy, which I love that too. But man, they had some great content last night. They're on this morning too. But
Jason's Jason's a hard worker, man.
Dude, yeah, great dude. I got to get in touch with him. I was going to jump on there with him. So, but Yeah, just real quick, I just want to put out, like, if you look at last year alone, he got with Russell, right? And you look at him, and he's 6'3", 175. Keelan Russell, right? Like, he very much giving me Penix vibes. Leads Duncanville, 14-1 record, second straight Texas 6A D1 state title. Whoa. He goes 72.1% in his passing for basically 3,500 yards. He's like 15 yards away. 38 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, and he also ran for 361 and 6 TDs. So the guy can move.
And let's not forget, he's got a running back on that roster that's going to LSU.
Dude.
So to get that with that running back, like, that's incredible.
I thought, is it the running back or the wide receiver?
Well, Kadyn Moore was also committed to LSU. He decommitted, but
he plays for
Caden Durham was the
okay.
running back there, and that guy's like speed.
Oh yeah,
and like really talented, man. Dude. Really talented.
Just a beast, man. But I mean, then you look at his his sophomore year. You know, he takes over for Jameer Willis. He ends up going 15-0. Again, wins the state championship. He goes. He's at still sophomore year 66.9%. He only throws that year for 2,400 yards, basically. 22 TDs and 9 picks. So, and then he runs for 203 and 3 touchdowns. But you look at him though, and just from a development standpoint, I think this probably was really, really impressive to coaches. You look at his sophomore year, which he takes over, he steps into this role, a new starter, leads them 15-0, and then does it. They almost again goes 14-1, but wins another state title and puts up massive numbers once he gets comfortable. Man, yeah, I'm going to be honest. Winners win.
I might like him as my favorite quarterback in this class.
That's where I was just going, Ty. That's who I'm picking, man. Give me that kid over all the rest. I want a winner. Supposedly his character's amazing. He has he's an amazing dude, right?
And this is a really solid. Like I think that there are some really talented quarterbacks in this class. McIntyre, very talented. Bryce, what the kid? Is it Underwood? The kid that's committed to LSU is.
Yeah, Bryce. Yeah, he's great. Yeah, he's good.
Juju, unbelievable. All very talented. I think they are all. I mean, I think that this is
a lot of good quarterbacks.
I think this is a pretty safe quarterback class to be like, these guys are probably going to translate, right? I hope so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man. That's who I want.
I mean, Russell.
Especially, gosh. Well, I'm gonna look if Sheridan is if he's that good at like discovering this talent, right? Which it sounds like he is from a quarterback standpoint. And he sees these things. There's a reason why he picked Penix. There's a reason why he went after him so hard and was able to get him to come to Indiana. I think they're going to do the same thing. And now Russell's taking an official visit.
And in a few days, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you move it up.
That running back, by the way, Caden Durham.
Yeah.
You remember how I told you the Duncanville regionals?
Uh-huh.
What do you think he ran at regionals to qualify for state?
Shoot.
And his does translate.
Okay. All right. So 10.36.
10.25.
Wow. Whoa. Man, that's moving, dude.
I've watched Duncanville. I've been in the stands and I've watched him get the ball and then just
gone.
And I'm like, holy cow, man. Dude. That kid is different. He's so fast. And he's a playmaker with the ball in his hands. He's going to be kind of like an how do I put this? Because I don't mean he's going to be kind of like a gadget back for them.
Yeah.
Really, really, really talented guy. Really, really talented guy. And Kadyn Moore, I think he just ran like a 10.49 as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He's going to be fantastic. I think Texas will probably take that one home.
Yeah. Was he visiting Oregon this weekend?
Oregon, Ohio State, and Texas are the top 3, if I'm not mistaken, for Kadyn Moore. Texas just made a really interesting wide receiver coach hire. Jacksonville Jaguars, Chris Jackson.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yes, they did. And he's really impressive. How did they pull him, man?
Well, one, Sark, right? Like,
yeah.
But two, because their last wide receiver coach is now an offensive coordinator. Right? So
I'm trying. Did they convince him to come from Jacksonville?
Yeah.
Damn.
Which is a great hire. But you know who?
Wow.
You know who their last wide receiver coach was? It's a guy I've talked to you about that I absolutely love. Brennan Marion.
Yes, he did. Yep, I do remember that.
And I think Brennan Marion is a name that you all need to remember. He's now the offensive coordinator at UNLV. He's got his go-go offense. So he even came to Texas with his own like offense. He was the guy who was at Pitt whenever Jordan Addison went off. And he was the passing game coordinator. And the Pitt quarterback threw for some unbelievable amount of yardage that year. And the people who I know who are around that Pitt program, they were like, yo, Brennan Marion, he had his hand in this a lot more than people realize. Like, that guy is real good. So I think that Texas will probably pull off the Corian Moore. And they wanted Ryan Williams. So they've wanted that next level wide receiver, right? What a wide receiver class. You would have had Corian Moore and Ryan Williams for the same wide receiver class.
That's man, that'd be wild right there. But I just think in general with Texas, man, with their wide receivers, like there's so much talent in Texas alone. And then, they're back into recruiting good again, right? And being able to kind of flex some muscle here and there. It's going to be interesting to see them now in SEC. Again, gameplay, I'm telling you, it's just Texas, Oklahoma coming in. Had someone knocking on your door, Ty?
I have no idea because she is freaking out.
Yeah, dude. Go check it out. I think it's interesting in chat and Undefeated. You guys can kind of talk about this as well and let me know what you think. This is a unique year with the SEC from Texas, Oklahoma, coming like they're together now. SEC play, big deal. You have Nick Saban leaving, right, retiring, and then on top of that, we've seen all these other schools, especially like LSU, revamp their coaching staff. Ole Miss trying to really capitalize on Saban bouncing. You're seeing all these guys, like a lot of movement being made and power plays being made. And I just think this season, it's 12-team playoff, but it just means so much from who is going to it. Do we get to still rule, right? Or are all, because we're going to have a lot of people trying to come after us, at least from the coaches' mindsets. The players, and I think they're not thinking about it that way, right? They just want to win the championship. But the coaches also understand like maybe how important it is. So, I mean, that's why I'm happy we have who we have, because that guy is not, nothing phases him. DeBoer is not, he doesn't get phased. He's just like, man, I am who I am, and I'm going to do my thing and just win.
100%. 100%. Adam says you should show us the dog. If she wants to, but what happened was I'm surprised she barked at the Amazon guy.
Oh,
because my wife single-handedly sent Bezos to the moon, right? Like, you can thank my wife for that. You can thank my wife for Bezos owning a yacht. I always give her trouble. She's a teacher, so she's always, and that's the sad part. 90% of what she orders from Amazon is for the classroom, for her lessons. But yeah, I think that the Amazon guy probably woke Maya up from a nap, and Maya doesn't like being woken up from her naps unless you're giving her a chicken nugget or something. And then she's like, okay, fair play. But if it's not a chicken nugget, she's an old dog now, right? So she wants to eat. She wants to sleep. She doesn't even get too excited for walks. I say walk, and she looks at me like, you go for a walk, and I'm going to stay right here.
Yeah.
Dog is pampered.
Pampered, dude. Pampered. Man.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to get out of here. We will be back tomorrow and Friday, and then Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, I will not be here. So, Jake, you're going to have to hold it down, man.
Yeah, man. I will hold it down. I hope you guys still join me. We'll get into some subjects and next week. But in the meantime, you still got us though. You still got us till Friday at least. So we're gonna have a good time. And Friday we'll probably get Coach Sean probably be in there.
Yeah, we'll probably do a 3-man show Friday with Coach
Yeah.
Sean. That's always a ton of fun.
Love that, man. Remember, make sure you guys do catch Coach Sean this evening. He'll be on 7 p.m. It sounds like Central Time. Maybe joining him. So we're figuring the schedule out. But Coach Sean will be on this evening. That will be a lot of fun. Good times, and just really enjoyed you guys today. Thank you for everybody who's tuning in, and make sure as you check us out and you enjoyed the content, round those thumbs up for us.
Yeah, hit those thumbs up, guys. Just as one more time, Jake, on that schedule for this evening.
Yeah, it should be 7 p.m. Central Time. Coach Sean, 7 p.m. Central Time, I believe. Coach Sean, and then I do have a quick update for you guys. I got my Twitter done. Everybody got my Twitter done. You want to follow me? I don't know where it went. I had it up by my name. I don't know where our names are presenting. I don't know where they went. Ty, dang, dude. They pop up and then they go away. Oh, there we go. Whatever that was. Oh, it's the comment. Got you. So you can see my Twitter right here, right there. Boom. And it's all capital. Okay. At Coach, and then you got an underscore J Mayer, right? Come hit me up, say what's up on Twitter. I got it pop back up again so I can start saying hi to everybody, getting back after it, and connected and whatnot. And just, man, excited to chat with you guys there too. So finally got some way of getting a hold of me that's not through email.
There you go. There you go. Yeah. Well, be sure to follow Coach Jake on Twitter. Y'all can find me here. You can find me at Around the Table Sports. Next Monday, we will not be doing the live show Monday, 5 p.m. Central Standard Time. The live show will come next Thursday, 5 p.m. Central Standard Time over at Around the Table Sports. We broke down the Big 12 and the ACC. That took us 2 hours to break down the Big 12 and the ACC. So next week for 2 hours, we're going to break down the Big 10 and the SEC. On top of that, go ahead and mark your calendars. On June 13th, I will be hosting a stream over on Bleacher Report talking about the early SEC winner predictions. I think the Bleacher Report's trying to get me back involved as they ramp up the college football content. So you'll catch me over there over on Bleacher Report doing just some general college football content. I think it'll be on the national side as opposed to the Alabama side. So looking forward to it. Some dates for you all to know. Until next time, we must introduce you to the most esteemed member of this panel, the one that really calls all the shots here. I am powerless. I am but just a cog in the wheel. That is the wheel of the spinning wheel of doom. You see how I did that little thing?
That was good. That was